This is Jocko Podcast number 154 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
And we are going to go into some Q&A today.
Sure.
We got a bunch of questions to go through. I asked if anyone on Twitter had questions, and I got a ton of them. So we're going to try and answer some of them. Some people, if you're listening and you asked a question like, what time do I go to bed? Or what kind of workout do I do? Or something like that, then I'm not going to answer it now because I've answered it a bunch of other times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fundamental things, or it's in the Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. Or, so these were some questions that had some of them, that we've heard some of them before. Maybe there's a different spin, but some of them I tried to pull out the fresher type questions for this. And ones that aren't entirely fresh, I'll try and cover very briefly with whatever the new sort of angle is. Because there is a fact that, you go to a class and you learn 2 or 3 new moves in jiu-jitsu, and that's good, but you also review just a arm lock.
Sure.
And that is still beneficial, especially if it's from a new angle or a new instructor. They tell you, hey, you move your hand a little bit further out on their wrist if you're going for that thing, and it helps you.
Sure.
So there's little details.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's rock and roll.
Great. Cool. All right. First question. Can you describe how difficult or no factor leaving your family was before deployment? I hate leaving.
Okay. Let me just answer that one. Yeah. It sucks to leave your family before deployment. That's the way it is. One thing that I've always said is, to guys that were saying, I'm going to leave my kids and it's horrible to leave. And I'm like, yep, it is. And they worry about it from the kid's perspective. I'm not going to be around,
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. Men have been leaving to go and fight wars and do what they got to do for thousands of years. And so your kids are going to be okay. And what's good is they will see what you're doing, see your service and your sacrifice and you stepping up and holding the line for the nation. And that will be a lesson that they will learn by observation. And so even they'll be sad, but inside they're learning. They're learning that there's things more important than yourself. And so it's a good lesson to be taught. Yes, is it horrible to leave your family? It sure is. But it is a lesson for your kids, and it is a sacrifice you're making for your country. And there are benefits to it. Your kids, you get to come home, and you'll see it, and you'll see your kids, be all excited, and it's good. Yeah. It's a good thing. So that's question one. Yes, it's harsh, but it's a worthy cause.
Yeah. Kind of second part to the question. Did you cry when you learned that your childhood friend committed suicide while you were doing buds? Okay,
yeah. So I mentioned that on a couple of podcasts ago that my friend Jeff killed himself while I was going through buds. He was a kid I'd grown up with, but I had grown apart from him in the later grades, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and through high school we kind of grew apart. So I did not, I was sad by the situation, but I wasn't super emotional about it. Because we had kind of grown apart, and it had been, I was now in the Navy. So no, didn't cry, but was definitely sad about the situation.
Yeah. Kind of back to that first part about leaving. Isn't like a healthy dose of that like good for the kids?
For sure.
Because it's like now they know how to make do. If dad's there for every little thing, kind of thing.
For sure.
And then the inevitable day comes that you're gonna go, leave, or at least they gotta leave. They don't have to depend on kind of dad being there, kind of for everything.
The trials and tribulations and those things, adversity will make kids tougher. Yeah. That's just the bottom line. So this is an adversity, and it's an adversity that kids, it'll make them tougher, make them stronger. Yes, agree.
Next question. Any good recommendations for cutting back on alcohol?
Just straight up, why would you cut back and not just stop? At this point in my life, I don't drink anymore. And I know that some people have an alcohol problem. And so I think trying to cut back if you have an alcohol problem isn't a realistic thing to do, because you'll take that slippery slope and just get drunk.
Yeah.
So I think what you have to do is just stop. And I know that, and again, I don't have a good familiarization to know what it's like to be addicted to alcohol. I didn't even really like consciously, oh, I'm going to stop drinking now. Yeah. I just stopped drinking because I was out of the Navy. I was working a bunch and carrying on, and wasn't around those, my bros anymore, where we'd go out and have a beer. And so if that's not happening, then it's not happening. Mm. And that's one thing I'll say is, I know that people that have alcohol issues, addictions, they always say you got to change the people, places, and things that you do. So the people that you hang around with that like to drink, you can't hang around with them. The places that you go where everyone likes to drink, you can't go to those places. The things that you like to do that involve drinking, you can't do those things. Mm. So there you go. I would say stop drinking. And hey, if you're an alcoholic, you got to get medical supervision, because that's actually, you can die if you're an alcoholic and you stop drinking. Yeah. So you have to like go and get help, but stop. Mm.
Yeah, a lot of those times, the people who are that far into alcoholism where they stop drinking and they die, mm-hmm. That's like, usually they don't even want to stop drinking. Usually that's just how I'm drinking, usually. But I think I might have more experience on this one than you. But all those things, man, that's like a really concise that's a good way to put it, like the people, place, and things, yep. Right? Activities, whatever. But a big part of it, like, and I said this before, where a big part where I would stop drinking, it was way easier when I just understood what it was. Like understood, like, why am I just wanting to drink? And why is it that when I start drinking, like, it's kind of harder to stop, than maybe, I don't know, the next guy or whatever. And then once I understood like what's happening physiologically or whatever, I came up with my own little strategy. And the big part of it was like, oh yeah, like my brain is like tricking me into thinking like, yeah, that you want this thing or whatever. That was like a major one. And the other one was kind of has to do with the people, place, and things. It was where if I had a reason not to drink, like if I had a workout that I really took seriously the next day, or if I was going to record or something, to do something where to be hungover or whatever would really mess me up, it'd be way easier. So back not high school, but in college, like in athletics and stuff like that, you never really drink during the week because you had practice the next day. You don't want to be hungover in practice, so it'd be real easy. Oh yeah, we're not drinking today, kind of thing. So if you can kind of set up your life where you have like something important that you can kind of look forward to and really care about the outcome of, something that's not necessarily mundane in your mind, because a lot of times that'll kind of, it's a slippery slope when you're like, yeah, it's important, but it's mundane in your life. You'll be like, let's see how I can endure it, kind of hungover. It's kind of worth it. I'll pay the price now, kind of thing. But yeah, if you can set up your life where you have something that you find like important to be functioning fully, that helps. Yeah,
jiu-jitsu. Train jiu-jitsu on Saturdays.
Yeah.
That affected me when I was in the teams, and we'd go out and drinking on Friday. And then when I started training jiu-jitsu all the time, I wanted to be good to go for jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I just started to stop drinking on Friday nights hard.
I would say this with jiu-jitsu. I would say compete in jiu-jitsu then, and I don't know, people are different. There's a spectrum, but to me, jiu-jitsu, I mean, I'll train hungover. Jiu-jitsu, in fact, jiu-jitsu helps the hangover. If you can drag yourself out of the house, yeah, which isn't that hard once you do it once. If you're hungover and you're like, oh man, I really don't feel like going to jiu-jitsu right now, but you just do it. The first time you do it, that's the hardest time. Every other time you're like, yeah, I did this before. This is easy. I'm not going to be suffering. You go, depending on the level of hangover, you're going to suffer in jiu-jitsu, or maybe not. After a while, you get used to it.
I don't know.
Maybe
it out. I was training like at a higher level, and I mean, like, seriously, not trying to be like a jerk, but like this is back when I was training with Fabio, and so Dean and I would show up and we'd train for like 3 hours straight, and like hard. And so if you're going to come in and do 4 rounds. Yeah, you're a little hungover. It's no big deal. But if you're going to come in and you're going to train for an hour worth of class, then you're going to roll hardcore for 2 hours. you're not going to, trust me, you're not going to want to be all hungover, dehydrated, and jacked up mentally.
Yeah, I dig it. And if you're going to train that hard, then don't. You probably, it's going to be hard to drink and maintain that.
That's
your typical person is not going to train that hard. I mean,
probably because they're drinking too much.
If you're a competitor, no, even people who don't drink don't train that hard. Typically, in my experience, I don't know. But if you're training for a tournament, you can take it way more seriously, just kind of in the back of your mind, you know? It's not just like, jiu-jitsu training. Sure. So, again, I'm not saying, so that's not going to work if you're just practicing, so it won't work. I'm not saying that. I'm saying people are different. And if I use myself as an example, like I could train, I could hang. Bro, I was training with, like, when I'd go train, like, at Otto's or whatever with these crazy training sessions, I would go slightly hungover, go Dean every Friday. So, okay, look, of course, I could probably train better if I didn't drink the night before, for sure. But I'm just saying, as a catalyst for stopping drinking,
that didn't help you.
It didn't help me as much as
maybe
me. Yeah,
and it wasn't even like a catalyst to help me stop drinking. It was just the functionality of life.
Yes,
was I've got to do this in the morning. Cool. I'm not going to get all hammered tonight, so I can do better.
Yeah,
as a human.
Yeah, and that's really the format right there, where you find something. I mean, to me, you know, like it or not, like jiu-jitsu, just the training. If I was competing, I'd easily stop drinking, easily. But just for the training, if I didn't have a competition or whatever, it didn't help as much as one might think.
Sure.
But if I had something like, you know, if we're recording or something, something who that you would think you might be able to even, it just depends on how important it is for you to be functioning at the best level you can, you know? If I get tapped out a few more times in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like, whatever. So it just depends on who you are is what I'm saying.
Sure.
Oh, you didn't like that one? Either way, man, I think that helps. But that's going to be hard. Either way, if you don't have some kind of like format, scaffolding in your brain to kind of like a plan, you know, like a little strategy to be like, I'm just going to drink less. I'm just gonna drink less. Like it's pretty rare that's gonna it's gonna work.
Yeah, that's why I cut back. I say don't cut back, just stop.
Yeah.
Check.
Next question. Communication is often used as an excuse, both under and over. Under communication and over communication, for why the direction isn't clear. Any suggestions on balancing comms communication up and down with the right level of detail?
Here's a jacked up answer. The answer to this question of how to balance comms is comms. You want to balance communications, you have to communicate. You have to understand, hey, do you guys know what's going on? You need to check and make sure that they know what's going on. If they know what's going on, great. If they don't know, then you didn't communicate with them enough. If you spent too much time communicating and now they're looking at you with a blank stare like, hey, bro, we got this, then you communicated too much. So, and ask them, hey, do you understand what's going on? Cool. And if not, do you understand why we're doing what we're doing? Cool. All right, good. I'm going to let you go do it now. So the answer to making sure you're not communicating either too much or too little is communication. I hate to say that, but that's what it is. There can be some of that can be nonverbal communication. You know, you can observe. If you give your guys a task and then you go out and observe them and you see that they can execute it really well, then you know that you've done a good job communicating it to them. If you go out to observe them and they don't know what they're doing and they don't know what's going on, then you realize, I didn't give them enough information. I need to communicate more. So you don't have to necessarily ask them. You can tell through observation and checking on them and seeing where they're at and what they're doing if they actually understand what's going on. So yeah, that's it. Pretty straightforward. Get your little feedback loop going.
Yeah, but it is kind of like, and I'm going to use the word again, dance. It is kind of like a dance.
It's a dichotomy. Yes, you can communicate too much and you can communicate too little, and you have to find the balanced thing. Because if you communicate too much, people stop listening to you.
Right, and then it's no longer communication at that point. Because it's kind of like if you're sleeping and I'm like, hey, okay, Jocko, telling you what to do. Like you can't hear me. It's not going into your brain. It kind of has to go in your brain. What I'm saying, you got to catch. Kind of does. You got to catch what I'm throwing. Yeah. And, and vice versa if we're quote unquote communicating. So yeah,
you don't need to put quotes around communication. It's just a word.
All right. Well, there you go. But if one of those, even one of those things isn't happening, we're not communicating. So like the whole over communication thing, that's like, someone talking too much and the other guy stops listening.
Are you over communicating so far in this podcast?
No, I think
you are.
I'm just saying, like how you say like feedback, you know, like that's an important thing. Because if you're like blah, 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 and how you say the blank stare, communication's gone. Communication's not going on anymore.
You see this look on my face right now?
Yeah, like the one
that's a blank stare.
No, you're giving me feedback, which is good. See what I'm saying? So now I'm clear. I'm clear that you want me to move it along. See what I'm saying? It's good communication on your part. Here's the thing with you and your blank stare. In my experience, which I have a lot, by the way, your blank stare communicates way more than just like a blank stare. For real.
Check.
Mike Sorelli will tell you all about that. Like you'll have a whole conversation with me and not even say one single word. For real. I know exactly what you're saying. See, like right now, I know exactly what you're saying. Anyway, next question.
That's exactly what I was saying, actually.
Like I said. When taking ownership, how can you prevent your boss thinking you're a complete screw up and stop it from escalating to a point where he starts blaming you for things you're not actually at fault?
So this is one of those catch-22 situations where you actually don't think you're at fault. So when you actually don't think you're at fault, then you're thinking, oh, I'm just taking ownership, so that's like the cool thing to do. And that's what I'm trying to use this as to improve my situation, right? I'm gonna quote unquote take ownership. And when you quote unquote take ownership, but you actually don't believe you're at fault, then you're not really taking ownership. Yeah. So when you look around at your mission, at your task, at what you're being told to do, and you say, oh, I've got to do this thing. Oh, it didn't go right, and I'm going to take ownership of it and get it fixed. If you're just saying that and you don't actually mean it, then your boss starts blaming you for it. Well, you should feel that way, because when your boss blames you for something, you know what you should be saying? Yeah, boss, I know. I said that this was my responsibility, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it. You shouldn't, when your boss starts blaming you for things, you shouldn't say, well, no, actually, that's not my area of responsibilities. Yeah. What you should say is, oh, yes, boss, like I just said, this is my fault, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it. That's what you do. So you actually think about this. When you're the type of person that takes ownership of things, you actually can't get blamed for things. You can't blame me for things, because I'm already volunteering and saying that this was my responsibility and I'm going to fix it. So that's what you do. That's what you do. You take ownership, and you take real ownership, which means when there's a problem, you look at it and say, this is my fault. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. Yeah. And when your boss says, hey, yeah, this is your fault, you go, I know, boss. I know, 100%. And this is what I'm going to do to fix it. And then you go fix it. Yeah.
And the thing that I didn't notice, I said this before too, but I think it's easy to sort of forget when, especially if you're thinking like this, which I dig, man, is the whole, what am I going to do to fix it? Because when you like for real take ownership, whatever, it's because, man, just like how you say, it's almost like what you just said, where you say you can't blame me.
You can't blame me
because I already took responsibility, kind of thing. Because, and in a big way, it's not necessarily about blame. It's more about fixing problems that are gonna come up. Nothing's perfect, you know. So now it's more of like a way of dealing with problems, less than a whole taking blame thing.
In culture, in business, in teams, in real life, people blame each other. That's what happens. That's just how, and if you're the person that says, hey, you know what, this is actually my fault, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it, there you go. Yeah. Then that blame, you can say, yeah, blame me. I'm the guy. Because I'm the guy that made this mistake. Yeah. It's no factor.
Yeah, yeah. And then you can just focus on fixing the problem. And yeah, man, that's it. The thing is, the reason I bring it up is because it is easy to forget that part. Because that blame is so
fixing
impactful.
The problem part?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. With extreme ownership. I mean, obviously, because it's like, hey, I took extreme ownership. Like, why didn't he do his part?
Now why are you saying it's my fault?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, bro, that's not the main part. The main part is like, you got to fix it, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think so. All right, next question. I have 2 warrior kid daughters who are very much on the path with pretty much everything but snacking. They're starting to put some weight on as a result, despite tons of physical activity and good eating at mealtime. How can I coach them in this area without being overbearing?
I would say don't have snack food in your house. That's junk, which you probably do. Yeah, that's real simple. What are they going to do? If there's no snack food in the house, how are they going to snack? Yeah. The answer is they're not, because they can go out and eat grass from the yard if they're still hungry. But so that's one thing. The other thing is you got to be careful with kids, and I'll say this with girls especially. You start throwing that like, hey, you need to watch your weight. You can really mess with their body image. So you got to be really careful about what you're doing with a kid, with a little girl. Guess what? Little girls, little boys, guess what they are when they're little? They're little pudgy little creatures, you know? Mm-hmm. And sure, there'll be some genetic kids that have 2% body fat and a 12-pack of abs when they're 6 years old. Mm-hmm. But most kids are like a little bit pudgy. That's part of their prepping for their growth spurt.
Yeah.
And if you're all freaked out about it, you know, what you're going to do is you're going to put that in their head. They're going to start looking in the mirror, and you don't want to do that to your kids. So don't have any junk food snacks in the house. Give them some milk, right? Give them some Warrior Kid milk because it tastes delicious. It is like a snack, and it's good for them, and it'll be satiating. I know you don't like that word, Echo, but it'll satiate them. It'll make them feel full. So that's a good kind of snack food to have in the house. And if you're gonna have other snack food, then make it beef jerky. Make it some healthy, you know, some carrots, some celery. You know, make it some good healthy stuff. But yeah, like worrying about your kids starting to put on some weight when they're, I don't know how old they are in this particular case, but just be careful. You don't want to freak your kids out and get them with a really paranoid body image, especially girls. They're getting it from a million different directions. And you got to be careful with it because that can be turned into a real problem.
Yeah. And the thing that actually you clarified really good to me one day, where when you kind of implement change, you know, in a routine, especially if snacking is kind of like a routine or whatever, when you implement change, like there's going to be some hiccups there, you know, like whether it be, I don't know, in this case, like complaining, like, hey, what, you know, you're saying, hey, don't keep snacks in the house. So now there's no chocolate covered pretzels anymore. You know, like, hey, I remember the chocolate covered pretzels. They were right there in the little pantry right there. Now they're gone. Like, what up? I haven't seen them in days. You're like, hey, we're not doing the chocolate covered pretzels anymore. Or whatever. There's going to be some blowback there, especially from the little kids. You know, they're going to be like, what, Dad? You know, there might be some complaining. So I think if we go in, or when we go in, knowing those things, that helps a lot. So you're kind of prepared for it. You know, you can kind of plan what you're going to say or how you're going to handle it.
You're getting way too intense with this. Bro, there's no chocolate-covered pretzels. Guess what? They didn't have them at the store. I'm not getting them. They're bad for us. We're not eating them.
I dig it, but a lot of times when you have, you know, two girls or whoever,
you know what's good? Get a pull-up bar.
Yeah, but they're not
just
going to be
Get your kids on
like,
the pull-up bar train.
Yeah, but they're not going to be like, hey, oh, no chocolate pretzels? Oh, I'll just do pull-ups. It doesn't work like that with the little kids.
Bro, it's not that big of a deal to pull a snack out of your house.
Yes, I don't think
especially if you get some beef jerky and you're like, you know what? That stuff's bad for us and I don't want to eat it anymore. So I got some beef jerky here. It's really good. Taste it.
Yes, but to be
get
ready.
Some seaweed. You know, the dried seaweed?
Oh, yeah,
my kids
like
used
that.
to eat that stuff like it was like they were damn octopuses.
But that's good though, right?
Octopi.
Yes, I like the dry seaweed. Yes, I was pounding some of that the other day with both my kids. They like it. Salty, delicious. Anyway, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying necessarily make it a huge deal. I'm just saying if you're ready for the blowback, you know, because what if you're not ready? You think that
okay, I'll agree with you. Just so we can move this conversation along. In order to prep for if you stop the chocolate covered pretzels in your compound,
so you don't really agree.
You can come up with a plan of action,
little plan,
a plan of action, an immediate action drill. When that 6-year-old goes, Dad, where are the chocolate covered pretzels? You have a very well rehearsed response. You can do some role playing with your wife, and you can go.
Yeah, see, I see what you're doing, and cool, man. I'm telling you, this helps. This will help.
Okay,
because you know the poor kids. You care, you know, you care about the short term a little bit too. You know, of course, the long term. You know, that's why you're doing the whole thing. But all you got to do is explain. Hey, you know what? Hey, we're not doing that anymore because it's not good for us.
Oh, okay,
straight up.
Cool.
There it is.
That's good. Good point.
Not a huge. Well rehearsed. Anyway,
role play with your wife.
No. Next question. Why isn't MMA or jiu-jitsu a bigger component of law enforcement training? This seems to be a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, it certainly is a huge missed opportunity. I plead with all law enforcement personnel to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai as much as you possibly can. And I plead with law enforcement agencies of all types that I talk to get these types of programs in your departments, because there is no doubt that it will help your officers be better and more prepared to handle situations on the street. Just had a police officer come in here the other day that was just signing up, and you know, she just got done with the police academy, and I'm so thankful that she's here because I'm like, yes, go and start training immediately, and it will be so beneficial for you in your career, in your life. And one thing about all these things and any form of martial arts for like self-defense or self-defense situations, or, you know, because that's sometimes what it turns into for a police officer. They're no longer, you know, once you, things cross over from where they're on offense to where they're on defense. And for a police officer, this is a great example. Like, this was a female, and hey, could a female 118-pound female police officer take a guy that was drunk, slightly drunk, a wrestler who's 240 pounds? The answer is no. She's not going to fare well in that situation. But if she knows, if she's trained, she might be able to prolong that conflict long enough for her backup to arrive. She might be able to stay alive, keep control of her gun, whatever, you know, keep control of the situation long enough that she will get her back up there. So that right there, and that's the same thing I tell females that want self-defense. It's like, hey, look, I'm not saying you can't, because you look at some of our female jiu-jitsu players, they will choke out a dude, like straight up. They will arm lock him, like for real. And a 200-pound wrestler, they'll put a guillotine on him and choke him, put him to sleep. So that can happen. That's what someone that's really skilled to make up for their lack of strength and lack of size, being a female. But what if, even if you're not that good, but you can postpone, you can prolong, someone's trying to grab you and take you somewhere, someone's trying to do something to you, you can prolong it. The longer you can delay the offense from taking place, the better chance you have of somebody else coming along, or somebody noticing, or that person just giving up, because most criminals are, you know, weak-minded and they don't want that kind of resistance. So yes, totally. You're asking why isn't it? There's a bunch of reasons why it isn't, and one of them, and I've talked about this before, but there's been cases where people that were not trained enough, they were trained enough to be dangerous, where they've choked guys to death. And that has happened. You crush someone's windpipe, you can be screwing around, or you just, well, not screwing around, but you can be screwing around. You could, you know, you and I could start wrestling around. If you and I were white belts and we started going at it really hard, there's a chance one of us could get the other one in a chokehold, had a couple drinks in us, and next thing you know, I put you to sleep, which is, oh yeah, I'm going to put you to sleep. Because sometimes you choke your friend, you're like, oh, I'm going to put you to sleep. Well, if I'm drunk and you're drunk and I put you to sleep and I don't really know that you're asleep yet and I'm squeezing extra hard because I'm drunk, next thing you know, I look up and all of a sudden your hyoid bone has crushed your windpipe and you're now going to die. So that's happened in law enforcement. They've banned chokes, which is a horrible thing, because choking is one of the best and most minimal forces to use to subdue someone, is to choke them. Even an arm lock is going to break their arm. It's going to ruin their tendons. It's going to hurt them. A choke doesn't even hurt someone. It just puts them to sleep. Just incapacitates them. So, but that's one of the reasons why they don't teach it as much. The other reason is they don't give enough training to law enforcement officers, and they need to. They train an absolutely pathetic amount of time in what they call defensive tactics. Generally, the police officers call it defensive tactics, which is them fighting and maintaining weapon retention and all that. They train a very small number of hours a year. They measure the time that they train in a year in hours. That's how little they train. So my campaign I'd like to go forward with is, I think that police officers should spend 1/5 of their active duty time training. 1/5 of their time should be training. That's the way it should work. And I don't know how I'm going to start that ground wave, but that's such a solid idea that no one can argue against it. There's not one single argument against every police officer spending 1/5 of their time training. And if you want to argue with me about that, and the argument is, well, we won't have enough police officers out on the beat then. And here's the question back at that. Would you rather have 8 highly qualified, highly trained officers out on the beat, or 10 officers that were barely trained at all? And the answer is so easy to that question. So that's a bunch of things. I'll continue to push that as much as I can. And I know a ton of law enforcement people listen to this, and just, I think that's a great idea to start pushing from the ground, from the grassroots. We want 1/5 of our time training. It's going to make us all better. It's going to prevent, think of all the time that's hours that are wasted in legal actions after there's a bad shooting or an injury or something like that. Think of all the stuff that gets wasted there. Take the officers and train them properly. That's what needs to happen. So hopefully it will.
And then what would you suggest that, I mean, kind of obvious what you're going to say, but you suggest, like, police officers going and getting training on their own. So, like,
yes, if you have to go get training on your own, go get training on your own.
Because most jiu-jitsu places, they'll have a law enforcement, like,
some
discount
kind of deal.
or
some kind of deal.
Yeah, actually, this guy, Craig, right? Hanami, the guy from Hawaii. Okay, police officer up in Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, always doing jiu-jitsu, like with his uniform on, and you can look him up on Instagram. You can see all the stuff he does with jiu-jitsu, and he applies it to law enforcement.
Yeah.
And it's such a clear demonstration of the benefits. And everyone who trains, like, it's like, man, it becomes really, after you train for a while, all this dealing with other people in chaotic situations, bro, it's easy. It's literally easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
So, man, watch Craig and his stuff. And here's the thing, though. I don't know how that works with, like, work and, hey, you're at risk of injury. I don't know. I don't know what the whole deal is. But, man, the way I see it, man, Craig's over there training all the time.
Train.
And so, man, just train on your own until your situation arises with the law enforcement.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll implement that sometime in the future, man.
Next question. Bow or not? In jiu-jitsu, he's 3 months in, professor, not bowing. I don't. Other practitioners bow. No one told me. When in Rome versus I'm not in a herd. Respect the professor, mats, and practitioners.
This is a pretty simple question. Some people bow when they go on the mat. Some people bow to the professor. Some people don't. I don't. I just kind of do whatever, and it doesn't really matter to me. And there's a little bit of paranoia in the question, which I understand, which is like, hey, when in Rome, do as Romans do. But at the same time, I'm going to hold the line kind of on my personal values. So it's like, I'm not bowing, right? That's not my gig. Or, hey, it's respect. You got to bow. Like, there's both those extremes. Yeah. And both of them can be articulated in a way that's fine. Yeah. And to me, I'm just like, whatever. Oh, it looks like everyone's bowing. Cool, I'm going to bow. Not that big of a deal. I don't freak out about it. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. I think to me, the overall arching principle of my actions, bowing or not bowing, is more based on my overall principle of not making a spectacle out of myself one way or the other. Yeah. Like, I'm not here to, like, draw attention and be like, hey, I don't bow. Or, hey, this is jiu-jitsu. You need to respect the mat. I'm, like, over here just trying to train. Yeah. Yeah. Not trying to make a big deal out of myself. Yeah. So if everyone's bowing, it's like, cool. Like, no big deal. I get it. Yeah. Or if no one's bowing and it's like, hey, no big deal. Yeah. I guess people might be disappointed that I don't have some hard stance, right? Yeah. But I don't. Yeah. There's some things I don't worry about. That's one of them. Yes, I believe that. Yeah. How about we just train? Yeah, agree. And that'll sort itself out anyway, because if you're at a school, because some schools sort of require it. That's the protocol here at this school. No big deal. But you can have that exact attitude. Be like, cool, that's what we're doing. That's cool. Because some people, you bow on the mat, you bow off the mat. You at the beginning of class to the picture, whatever. At the end, like the whole deal. Mm-hmm. But same deal. It's like bowing's not hard to do. It doesn't affect your family life at home or nothing like that. It's just bow. Same thing with not bowing. Doesn't affect your, it's not hard to not bow. Now, I guess there's a line in either direction, right? There, where you could be telling me like, okay, when we bow, you need to bow and you need to praise, praise instructor, whoever. Yeah. It's like, okay, probably not. I'm probably not going to do that. Like we're not worshiping, right? Yeah. We're not bowing. It's like, okay, a little sign of respect. Cool, I got that. Yeah. But we're not going to turn a respect into a worship. There's a line that will not be crossed. The other direction is like, oh, someone's teaching a class and I'm just going to, run my mouth and walk onto the mat like it's no big deal. No, like you're going to be respectful to the instructor, of course. So I'm just going to find a little balance there, balance those two dichotomies.
So what if you go as a guest or whatever at another place and their protocol is, in your opinion, like sort of crossed over to worship?
I haven't really been to an academy where it crossed over into worship.
But let's say it did just a little bit. Or like, would you go as a guest? Do you just go through the motions out of respect for?
What I would probably do is go through the motions, but then do other actions that would indicate to everyone that I have a free mind. And that I'm not down with what they just did type of scenario. Like I wouldn't be obnoxious about it,
right?
But I'd be like, oh, you know what I'm going to do is take off my gi and sit on the mat right now. Like, oh, that's not allowed? Oh, okay, sorry, cool.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no big deal. They put it on. Like, cool, whatever. Just kind of like, indicate.
Would you say, at my academy, like, we don't care about these small things?
Yeah, maybe like, I don't know if I'd do that. Because then you're just trying to again make a spectacle. I'm not trying to make a spectacle, man. I'm just trying to be, just trying to get some training in, man. To be honest with you,
I just want to train. Yeah. So don't make a spectacle and get in the way, and let that spectacle get in the way of your training.
Yeah. How often are we making? I mean, how often do people try and make spectacles out of themselves? It's like people do that.
Yeah.
And that's not cool. Yeah. Like, don't do that. Don't be a spectacle. Yeah. Just be. I told that story before about the when I went to University of San Diego and there was a professor there that was like, she was an American, but she was a Buddhist monk, right? So she had at some point converted to Buddhism, and she would shave her head and walk around in the robes and stuff like that. And I was like, one of the tenets of being Buddhist is to like not make a spectacle of yourself, and yet here you are walking around a Western campus. In a uniform with a shaved head that you are making a spectacle of yourself. Yeah. So I was just like, I would think it would be more like the Buddha to just wear, a pair of jeans and a t-shirt,
right,
and just have like whatever normal, just be just look as normal as possible.
Yeah. Huh.
There's a whole thing. I fall back on that, a lot.
Yeah.
So,
because you'd think that she might argue, well, this is how us Buddhists like minimalize our whole efforts to have individuality or whatever.
Right,
but at the end of the day, like
when you're in Thailand, which is awesome, like the Buddhist monks, like, they're everywhere, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
And so they're not making a spectacle of themselves at all. And they come around and get rice in the morning. It's very cool. It's a very cool culture. But if you're in a culture of a Southern California university, there's no other Buddhist monks that are walking around. So you're kind of, and hey, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not trying to disparage, this individual. I'm just saying from my perspective, I was like, if you really want to have the low profile and not bring attention to yourself and give up, give up the trappings of ego. Right? You want to give up the trappings of ego, then you don't want people to notice you. If you don't want people to notice you, you dress like a gray man. You dress just like kind of normal.
Yeah.
Very
forgettable.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm not trying to get like deep into the religious aspect of jiu-jitsu and robes.
Sure.
But that's just kind of my opinion.
Yeah, I dig it. All right. Next question. Did you ever have a CCT attached to your unit? And if yes, how was having them alongside, and what advantages did they bring to the battlefield? So
CCT is an Air Force combat controller, and they're special operations guys. They're awesome guys. They go through really hardcore training, and I worked with them occasionally, not very directly on a couple occasions. They were great guys, but I never worked with them enough to be talking about them all the time, because I just didn't have that experience. I don't talk about bull riders either, because I don't know many of them. So
sure.
it's just that. But they're great guys. I know they have an awesome reputation, and my friends that have worked with them love to work with them. If There was a guy that was, I've had a couple guys kind of heard names of. So for as far as coming on the podcast, yeah, of course I'd have one on the podcast of without question, no problem. And what we had Anglico, which was Dave Burke and his guys. They were the guys that were doing the CCT type mission for us when we were in Ramadi. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't work with them very much on that deployment. The previous deployment, I had my own JTAC, and that's who we worked with. So just didn't have that opportunity. So they're awesome guys, though.
Very good. Next question. Jocko, currently in a busy and stressed place in life and keep looking back at what could have been. How do you bounce back to doing you and not getting in your own head? Appreciate what you and Echo do. Thank you both, and God bless.
All right. You know, we can look back all day long at what could have been, and it doesn't matter. Well, the only thing that matters from the past is what you learn from it. So let's learn from it and look at the future. And one thing I'll say is, it's like this saying about when's a good time to plant a tree. Yeah. Do you know when the best time to plant a tree is?
Right now.
Either 22 years ago or right now, right?
Yeah,
like look, you didn't do it then, so guess what you can do? You do it now. Yeah. When's the best time to start a savings account?
Same deal.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like 20 years ago or right now. Yeah. So if you sit there and say, oh, well, I could have done, if I wish I would have done this years ago, well, guess what? You look up in a year and you don't have that little sapling now. Yeah. You could have a little sapling, right? You have nothing. Yeah. So it's not that big of a deal. Hey, you went through life, you wasted some time. Good. You didn't waste it completely. First of all, you learned from it. You got experience. You had fun. You did other things. You learned about relationships because some girl dumped you, and you realize that you can't overcommit to a liar. You learn these things, right? Mm. So just because things were negative experiences in the past and they didn't feel good to go through doesn't mean that they were all bad, because you still took something away from it and you learned from it. Mm. So that's part one. Part two is, what are you going to do? Plant a tree today. That's what you're going to do. Plant a tree today and start to nourish that tree and take the lessons that you learned to sprinkle on that tree and feed that tree so it can grow fast. That tree that you plant today should be able to grow faster than the one you would have planted 20 years ago, because you have the knowledge on how to nourish that tree and feed that tree so it can grow quicker. So just get on the path. Don't play around with what's going on in the past. Learn from it. Move on.
Yeah, man. That goes along with how, like, that little speech. It wasn't a speech, but a little talk you had with me about, you gotta play the long game or whatever, and kind of in this case, same deal, where it's kind of more so than even you are playing the long game, but keep the long game in mind, because that's what, those thoughts like, dang, I should have went to college, or I shouldn't have went to college. I don't know, whatever. This whole what could have been kind of deal. That's like your mind saying, like, right now, if I would have done that back then, right now I would have this. And that's the part that kind of jams you up mentally, right? Where you're like, man, I could have had this right now. So when you think, so as a result, typically, in my experience anyway, which is almost none, but typically I think, like, wait, because when I think of what could have been, because of this thing that I kind of want right now, I don't want a seed right now. I want what I could have had. That's what I want.
You can't have that, so plant the seed.
Yeah, but kind of emotionally or mentally, that's not where your mind is. Your mind isn't like, hey, I can't have that, I accept that, and so let's think of the future now. Your mind doesn't do that. It's more like hung up on that, right? Of what you don't have right now, that empty void that you have. Mm-hmm. You don't want to fill that void with a seed. A seed doesn't do nothing for me. Not even a sapling. That doesn't. A full-grown tree. That's what I want right now. That's what I could have had. Mm-hmm. So how is a seed the problem or the solution to my problem? But if you're looking at the big picture, the long game, as you so eloquently put it that day, brother, the seed is nothing but a tree at a different time. That's really what it is. See what I'm saying? So that is a solution. See what I'm saying? And
that might be the most philosophically bold and unbounded statement you've made on this. The seed is nothing but a tree at a different time.
Thanks, bro.
I like how you did that. Right. Good job. It's all been worth it. The pain and suffering of listening has finally paid off.
Right. Good. Cool, man. Thank you. Anyway, so yeah, I think if you can keep that long game in mind, that's helped me a lot with just even small little things. stuff is like uncomfortable. I don't want to do this right now. But this exact thought, like, man, I'm looking forward to the day that I'm thinking the opposite of what could have been. I'm thinking, I'm so glad I planted that seed last year or whatever, so you can look at the long game and kind of fulfill all that stuff.
Sure.
All right. Anyway, next question. Hi, Jocko and Echo. My name's spelled wrong, by the way, here. But hi, Jocko and Echo. Quick question. I get really bad anxiety doing almost everything. For example, when talking to people, I always feel like as if I'm going to say something stupid, and this makes me start to stutter and lose my train of thought, and I just go blank.
Yeah, I'd say on that one, first of all, you got to condition yourself. You got to practice. You got to rehearse. Actually, first of all, I would say go get some speech therapy, someone to help you out, because that will be beneficial to you. Getting someone that's a professional to come in and say, like, okay, here's the drills that we're going to do. My buddy that drums in my band, there's drumming drills that you can do so you can get your left hand to do something different than your left foot and your right hand to do something. There's drills that you can do to overcome, because if you're like me, you're not a drummer. My right hand and right foot are going to do the same thing at the same time. My left hand and my left foot are going to do the same thing at the same time. Yeah. But there's drills that you can do to overcome that. And there's drills that you can do with speech, so you can practice and you rehearse and you think about it, then you'll get better at it. And the cool thing is, like, once you start to build some confidence, then you get more and more confident and you'll get better and better at it. The other thing I would say is talk about things that you know, right? Don't try and explain things that you don't know. Don't try and come up with some theory that you don't understand and try and just roll it out off the tip of your tongue because you don't know it. So just when that's happening, just sit back and kind of formulate your thoughts and think, okay, of all the things I'm thinking right now, what do I actually kind of have a grip on? Maybe it's a question. Sometimes forming something in a question will make it easier for you to state it, because you're saying, hey, I got a question. And now you're not putting pressure on yourself to come up with this perfect yarn of why this theory that you have. Instead, you pose something as a question. That'll take some pressure off you. And talk about things that you know. And if you don't know it, then ask a question about it, and that'll get you more comfortable. And you keep talking and keep trying, and over time you'll get better and better at it. But you have to not jump in. Like, don't go and volunteer to give the speech at the local club, right? Yeah. No, volunteer to, when people are having a conversation, say, hey, can I ask a question about this? Start with that. That's like the easiest entry point. No one's expecting you to say anything brilliant when you ask a question. They're just expecting you to ask a question. Yeah. So it's not that big of a deal. And then just build on that, man. It's exposure therapy. Yeah. Exposure therapy.
That's good. Next question. When you transitioned from E to an O, how did you approach working with men you previously served with as enlisted now that you were an officer?
This is such an easy question, because the bottom line is, when I transferred from being an enlisted guy to being an officer, I didn't change anything in the way that I treated everyone. I treated people the same. And when I was a young enlisted guy or a senior enlisted guy, well, more senior, I was never like I only made it to E5 before I went officer. But when I was in my 3rd platoon with other guys that were not in their 3rd platoon, I treat people like, hey, man, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to make it happen. Now, I got to caveat that for the guys that were in platoons with me when I was in the E5 Mafia. Hey, I was a little crazy with the hazing, and like, it sucked to be a new guy in one of my platoons, and I get that. But as you guys have told me, you appreciated it once you got a little, once you saw the big picture. Yep. There was appreciation. But no, from an actual working relationship, hey, what are you going to do? You're going to stay humble. You're going to treat people with respect, regardless if you're above them or below them in the chain of command. There's this saying that I didn't talk about when we had Derek Herrera on, and it's pulled from that speech by Jacqueline, by Gunnery Sergeant Jacqueline. He says at the end of the speech, he says, not above you, not below you, always beside you. So think about that from a leadership perspective. Yeah. Not above you, not below you, always beside you. So if you have that attitude, look, I'm not above you, and I'm not below you. Like, we're equals, and we're trying to figure out how to best solve this problem. And if you treat people like that, regardless if you're above them or below them in the chain of command, you'll treat them with respect and humility. you'll be fine. And that's what I did. I didn't treat anybody any different. And I mean, I had guys that worked for me that had been my peers or that I had worked for before when I went through that transition. And it was like no factor. It was literally no factor, because these guys were, you know, when we were friends, we worked together, we focused on getting the job done. When they were above me in the chain of command, what did I do? I worked hard and focused on getting the job done. When they were below me in the chain of command, oh no, it's like, hey, they're working hard. Did they become less of a person? Did I become more of a person? No. No. I put a different rank on my sleeve. What does that mean? Nothing. It doesn't mean it means, yeah, what does it mean? It means that I'm going to be given this brief instead of some other guy. Cool. No big deal. You know what? Why don't you give the brief? I'm fine with that. So, yeah, respect, humility, and never above you, never below you, always beside you. It's a good little thing to think about there.
Very good. Did you ever have the situations where you're throwing darts at the guy's back at the bar, you know, for your hazing situation?
No.
Shirt? Yeah.
We did some pretty rough hazing though, for sure. You know, lots of yeah, it was not fun. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. You know, and it was part of the ritual back in the day. It's not as much as it's not as much as that anymore. But you know, guess what? The guys are fighting a war now. Yeah. So I'm not like, oh, those guys don't have it as hard. Guess what? When I was in the teams, when I first got to the teams, it was like, oh, cool. Oh, you're in the teams. Yeah, you're gonna get hazed. Ooh, guess what? These guys are gonna get nowadays. They're gonna get shot at. Yeah. They're gonna get, you know, hit with IEDs. Yeah. So, not that big of a deal. It's just a little bit of a culture change, and that's the way it is.
Next question. Dichotomy of leadership has some great principles. What is an appropriate philosophy concerning time to train versus manage out a direct report when they have been in the role for over a year? Yeah,
this changes from industry to industry depending on the situation that you're in. And sometimes you have a really tight timeline to get people up to speed. And if they don't get up to speed, you got to get rid of them, or otherwise it's going to cost the team or it's going to cost the company money. So how long are you going to give them? You're going to give them as much time as you think you can give them before they start detracting from the team. You're also going to make sure that you're not investing so much time into one person to try and get them up to speed that you're ignoring everyone else, and now it's having a negative impact on the team. So you just got to look at the timing. Again, I worked with construction companies where if they don't get a job done on time, it'll cost them $60,000 a day. They don't play around. Like, they need someone that's going to be able to get the job done. You get some sales organization that's commission only, and there's somebody that's taking a while to get up to speed. They don't really care. It's not costing the company anything. So you got to figure out in your industry how much time that looks like, and then you got to set the expectations clearly. And once you've done that, you say, okay, listen, bud, I've been working with you for this amount of time. Here's where I want you to be at this date. If you don't get there, we're going to move you out, man. That's the way it is. Pretty straightforward.
Makes sense. Next question. I have to coexist at times with an individual who knows I'm ex-Army. He purposely makes pro-Taliban quips to piss me off, as I'm in a position I can't do much about it. His intent to anger works, but I don't show it. What's some advice?
Yeah, I mean, this guy's just I would just completely ignore him. You know, and I actually, you know, hey, that's funny, man. Cool. Yeah. He's obviously trying to get under your skin, and just don't let him get under your skin. That's just all there is to it. This person is worthless, and just ignore him. I mean, you could go to the extreme of taking, like in Mark's mission, where Mark actually gets in on the joke. Yeah. You know, and if you want to, you know, but then you might be crossing. Again, I don't know the specifics of the situation because there's times where that's not, like, I wouldn't do that in certain situations. Like no, I'll ignore you, but I'm not going to play along with this joke the way you're saying it. Yeah. But there's times where I'd be like, oh yeah, guess what? You know, I might play along with a joke just to defuse it. Yeah. Again, this might be a guy that doesn't deserve that, but yeah, ignore it, man. Don't even worry about this idiot. That's my advice.
Yeah, that ignore thing, you do that super good, where it's literally like you feel like you got no feedback from my little joke. Like if I make a joke to you or something, and it's almost like, did he not hear my joke? Because he just sort of moved on, you know, kind of thing. And it's really compelling me to like not tell that joke anymore, you know, kind of thing. And I'm assuming it works really good, actually. And he actually did have an example. Like the guy would say, hey, you're aiding the Taliban with the check this week. Like, I don't know if the check is junk or this week's check. Anyway.
Yeah.
So it seems like he's trying to be funny. You know, like he's not trying to be a dick to the guy.
Well,
like,
he says he's purposely trying to piss him off. And so for me, if you're purposely trying to piss me off, me getting pissed off is you winning.
That's the payoff.
And I'm not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to win. How am I going to win? By not getting pissed off.
Yeah. And your ignore tactic that you do in real life, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm not saying like the ignore where you're like a little kid ignores.
Yeah,
like a little kid,
just
ignore them and they like turn their back. No, it's like, oh yeah. You know, just like meaningless. Like your little quips literally mean nothing to me whatsoever. Yeah. So whatever. Yeah,
and that's a skill too, which apparently you've honed over the years, because it is. You can't oversell it. You can't oversell ignoring somebody. Otherwise, you're like, oh, you're not ignoring. I got the payoff.
I got it.
You know? So you can't oversell it. And underselling, ignoring means like you're not really ignoring, I guess. But if you can nail it, like literally your joke or your comments or whatever are falling on deaf ears, and they don't like affect me at all. If you can nail that, I would say that would compel a normal person or this kind of person, whatever, to stop. I think that works with everybody, even little kids.
Once again, you don't make a spectacle out of yourself. You just kind of let it roll. Like you're not making a spectacle of like, I'm ignoring you. Then you don't make a spectacle of like, hey, shut up. Yeah. You just play it in the middle and you just go through. Because there's things in life that don't matter. Yeah. I'm not saying that there's things that you don't react to, because there certainly are. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you want to be this neutral person for all things, but there's things that just don't matter. Yeah. There's things that they just don't matter. And this is one of them. This guy doesn't matter. Who is this guy? He doesn't matter. So don't put any effort into him. Just stay neutral. Give him a smile and a nod and keep doing what you're doing.
Another tip too for this: don't tell other people like, "Oh, that guy's pissing me off with that." No, man, you forgot about that thing. Totally just forgot about it. Yeah.
Never tell anyone when something pisses you off. Yeah. Never.
Yep. That way, because if you do, and then you're nailing the ignore tactic, you're nailing it, you're delivering it perfectly,
give it to someone else.
and then you told your friend or whatever, like, hey. So that guy knows that, he's just ignoring me, but that really pisses him off, So he'll just keep doing it. Yeah. And here's the thing too about playing the game, like or going along with the joke, like, that's funny. You just you kind of involve yourself in the game. Sure, he's not getting the payoff necessarily, but he'll just change his tactic because you're still in the game with him.
You want to get out of the game. That's why in that particular situation, Mark and Mark's mission was trying to befriend.
Yeah,
Nathan
you're right.
James. That's a different situation. He's not just trying to diffuse, or he's trying to actually befriend him, and so then he needed to make a connection. So that's the clear difference. Yeah. If this guy was like a coworker or a boss or a subordinate that you were trying to build a relationship with, then I might take a little step. And again, am I going to joke about somebody being pro-Taliban? I'm not probably joking about the Taliban very much.
Probably not. No. Yeah. Cool. Next question. Is it better to remain single if you have a dangerous or demanding career in order to protect your family from unintended negative consequences, or find a partner willing to embrace the risk and raise warrior kids together?
Hey, man. It's hard to live the life, and it's a lot harder on your family than it is on you, because you'll be over getting after it, and your family will be at home not knowing what's going on with you. So it's hard, but I mean, obviously, having kids and raising little warrior kids with a partner that's in the game is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find someone to get married to that's that good to go in the game, especially if they're real young. So I got real lucky. I married a girl that kind of got it, we'll say. And I said this when I was on Ben Shapiro's show, that the quality that she had and still has that I think is the most important is emotional independence. And I don't even know if that's a thing. I don't know if I just made that up, but that's trying to describe that, my wife doesn't need the hey honey from me. She doesn't need to like hey, how's everything going? She doesn't need that from me. She's fine. She's emotionally independent. And of course she's independent in the way that she can take care of whatever, the kids and the puking kids and the kids diapers and the kids and the broken water heater and the flat tire on the car. She can handle all that stuff too when I was gone a lot. But most important is she didn't need the constant like emotional recharge from me because she's a independent, stable human being of her own. So I think that's the kind of thing you got to look for. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times dudes are attracted to the person that's emotionally dependent on them because it's a little ego boost. It makes them feel good, like, oh, she needs me around. Yeah, it makes sense. And it's like so you got to watch out for that. You got to find someone that kind of has their own thing going on, which also has to be balanced, because if you find a female that has too much independence, then guess what? She ain't gonna be around when you come home. She's gonna find somebody else. So you got to find that balance as well. But if you can find that right person, don't rush into it. Take your time, and she's in the game. Then yeah, man, get after it.
I gotta say that's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
That's like,
and a lot of times guys, and here's another, like, this is just it's an answer that's not really an answer, and yet it's fully an answer. Hey, I'm married and I'm thinking about going to SEAL teams. What will this do to my marriage? It's like, oh, there's a 50% chance your marriage is going to get destroyed because you're going to be gone all the time. Your wife is going to be jealous of the teams. She's going to be jealous of the travel. She's going to be pissed that you're not home. She's going to be pissed that when you get home, you're going to the bar with your boys instead of going to the recital for the daughter. Like that's a reality. So yeah, I can't recommend it. At the same time, if you're squared away and you have a good relationship, yeah, it'll be awesome. It'll be awesome. But it's a really hard, like when I meet a guy that's 19 years old, 20 years old, and he says, yeah, I'm going to Bud's and I'm getting married this summer before I go. Straight up, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. If you're in that situation, don't do that. Because if you have a great relationship with that person, you say, look, I'm going to go through Bud's. I'm going to be focused on that. It's going to take me some time. I'm going to show up at a team. I'm going to go on deployment. I'm going to come home. It's going to take about 3 years for all this to happen. When I get done with all that, we'll get married. Because we are so strong and so tight that we can get through 3 years without, being married. We cool? Let's see what kind of response you get from that. Because it's non-committal, right? Because it's showing the female, hey, I'm non-committal. When actually you're saying, listen, it's not that I'm non-committal. I don't even know what holds in the future. I don't know what the future holds for me. It's going to be crazy. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to drag you through a bunch of crap. Let's just pause on moving forward with the marriage part. And once we get done with that, give me 2 years, give me 3 years. And then you can see if you still want to be around. You think you want to be around right now. You haven't had a dude that's going on deployment for 7 months after he gets done with a 1 year workup, where I was gone in 12 months, I was gone 9 months. That's a whole nother thing. You may not want to be in that situation, ma'am. So if you're in that situation, don't get married. And do people pull it off sometimes? Yeah. Flynn Cochran got married, I think, before Bud's.
Yeah.
And so that's one guy, but it's a rare occasion, and most of the time it doesn't work out as well as Flynn. And it worked out for Flynn. Why did it work out for Flynn? One of the reasons, he married a girl that is emotionally independent and can do her own thing, and wasn't waiting on, that emotional boost. So there you go. And here's the final answer. It's like, what the right answer is. You actually know it. So many questions you actually know the answer to, but you want reinforcement of them. And but the only person that can answer these questions is you, the person. You got to listen to what I'm saying, sure. But you got to look at your future spouse and be like, or potential spouse. You're the one that knows. Now, what's hard is guys, especially guys, they go head over heels for females.
Yeah.
They go crazy.
Yep.
They go nuts. They don't even see straight.
Yeah.
You can't. I had guys in SEAL platoons where I was like, listen, hey, bro, this girl that you're involved with right now is going to ruin your life. Yeah. I want to tell you that. Yeah. Let me tell you what she's done so far. You're not married yet. I know you want to get married in 2 weeks. Yeah. So far, she stole your credit card. She's called the command 4 times to request to talk to the Master Chief about your orders. This girl is a nightmare. Please do not marry her. And guys are like, bro, you don't understand. And that's the way guys do it. Yeah. And how do I know that? Because I was the same idiot when you're 15 years old. Yeah. Oh my God, it's the only. No. It's like, no, that's not the only girl. It's not. There's more. So just calm down. Yeah. If the marriage is meant to be, let it be. But let it be in a year. Let it happen in a year. Don't be getting married in 3 months. Don't be getting married in 2 months. Don't get married in 6 months. Get married in a year. Get married in a year and a half. Do me a favor. Do yourself a favor.
Do us a favor.
Do us all a favor.
All right, there you go. Sounds like sound advice. Thank you. Next question. Could you talk about how you read a book to get so much out of it that you do?
Oh, yeah. Here's what I do when I read a book. I read the book. As I'm reading the book, I highlight the important parts of the book. Then I go back through and reread what I highlight and pull out the creme de la creme of the information. Another small thing, if you're reading a book where there's lots of characters, write down the characters and kind of like give them a description so you can refer back to them when they show back up again. Because sometimes I'll lose track of characters if it's a complex book, and you just don't know. So that's what I do. I read slowly. It's horrible. I wish I read faster. I read at the speed that I talk, just about. I read a little bit faster, but it's just about the speed that I talk. And I read every single word. And when I will say this, when I do read a book slowly and like I do read, I remember a lot from the book, which is cool. But read it slowly, highlight it, take notes. There you go.
Makes sense. Next question. What was plan B if you rang the bell?
I wasn't going to ring the bell. It wasn't going to happen. It seriously wasn't going to happen. Yeah. But here's what could have happened. Injury. You can get injured in buds.
Yeah.
And some injuries are more preventative, like shin splints. If you train properly beforehand, you probably won't get shin splints. Yeah. But if you're doing rock portage and there's big waves and you're bringing a boat, a Zodiac boat or a IBS boat up the rocks in big waves, you can just get your knee broke. Like it can happen. So then what would have happened? If I would have gone to the fleet, healed up, come back. That's what I would have done. Try again. It's that's one of the scariest things about buds from a guy that, like, the guys that I know that were like, we're never going to quit, but there's a possibility you're going to get injured.
Yeah. Can you get rolled, or they call it rolled, right?
Yeah, you get rolled back.
What about, like, even if you get sick, right? Like a doctor can be like, hey, you can't continue.
Yep. That can happen. That happens to guys in Hell Week. They'll get pneumonia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
And they can't, like, they're not quitting.
Yeah.
But they're coughing up blood. They're spitting blood out of their mouth. Yeah. And they're like, and the doctor's like, hey, are you okay? But I'm fine. Yeah. You know? And so they just have to get rolled back. Yeah, it happens. There's very few people that don't get rolled back. Well, yeah, it's a pretty small number that don't get rolled back at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Like for medical
anything. Failure. If you fail something, you can get rolled back. If you fail a run, I don't know what it is right now. When I went through, if you failed a run, okay, you got a write-up. If you failed another run, you got rolled back.
Dang. So you got to do the whole thing again.
You got to do the whole thing again. Yeah.
For one run.
Yeah.
Not just the run.
You got to do everything again. Yeah.
The whole thing.
No, it's a nightmare. Dang. So I failed a run, a swim, a obstacle course. Like, and then you just freaked out. Because I was so paranoid. I think you could actually, when I went through, you could fail one per phase. So there was 3 phases. Yeah. First phase, second phase, and third phase. You could fail like one of each thing per phase, which sounds really lenient. Yeah. But dang, you're doing because you're doing a timed run every week.
Yeah.
A timed run every week.
Yeah.
And then you're doing a million, they just call them conditioning runs, which is the most understated name for a run ever. Because what they really were is just the most grueling, as fast as you could go through the soft sand runs.
Like for how long?
Forever.
4 miles?
No, dude. No. And not only that, you ran to breakfast and back. Then you ran to lunch and back, and you ran to dinner and back. And each one of those runs was 1 mile. So there's 6 miles before you ran anywhere. Before your conditioning run and your timed run, you're doing a 6 mile run every day. Just, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's not a sprint. Sometimes you have to run fast. Sometimes you run slow. But it's just like a lot of times just a little, typical military shuffle.
Yeah. All right.
So, yeah. But I wasn't ringing the bell.
No, man. Next question. What actual strategy should a jiu-jitsu white belt employ during a roll other than relax, tap early, tap off, and etc.?
Well, those are the key points. But the other thing is, I would say try and do moves that you've actually learned instead of doing something that you just like you're spazzing out trying to do some random thing. Actually do something that you know. And if you get in a situation that you don't know what to do, remember the situation you were in so that you can ask an instructor, hey, here's where I was. I didn't know what to do. Can you please help me?
Yeah.
Simple. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Next question. If a coworker were attempting to bully, intimidate, or make you generally miserable, do you go with it? Would you make a mention of your jiu-jitsu knowledge or keep it a surprise?
I like that question. Yeah, I would keep it. I keep everything a surprise, right?
The mystique.
I just keep everything a surprise because I'm not here like, hey, I do jiu-jitsu, you better back off. What is that? Yeah. Instead, you're just like, hey, man, all good. And then let that guy find out for himself that,
The hard way?
Yeah. Either the hard way or someone will be like, hey, man, that guy that you keep messing with? That guy trains jiu-jitsu every day. He's going to choke you out and put you to sleep. Yeah. And then guess what he's going to do? He's going to get mouthy because he's already been testing you, and he's like, oh, he's kind of a wimp. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, there's no, is there even a cool way you can say I train jiu-jitsu?
No, because even if you pull it off externally, internally, you're like...
You know who said it cool?
Who? Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Royler Gracie.
Oh, yeah?
Royler Gracie.
I dig it.
He was surfing. Yeah. And I think Kid Peligro told me this story. But it might have been Royler that told me this. He was surfing, and somebody wanted to, give him some beef.
Get nuts. Yeah.
Somebody wanted to, hey, what are you doing out here? Type thing. And he was like, he did what I would do. It's, he just kept surfing kind of. And then the person started talking more, and then he started running his mouth. And then Royler said something like, hey, you like to surf. I like to fight. If you want to fight, we can do that. And I thought that was a pretty cool way of saying it.
He told that story, I think I was, unless he told it another time to you, at Brian Sargent's promotion to black belt when he was here. I think Kid Peligro was here too. I forget. But yes, he told me
He told that story to the group?
He told it to me, and I thought you were there.
Did I say it right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I thought there was kind of more.
Actually, he said it cooler than that.
Yeah.
He said it cooler than that. He said it some way that was like, yeah, listen, you like to fight. You like to surf for your life. I fight for my life. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. You surf for a living. I fight for a living. It was something even more than what I said, but it was good.
Yeah, we can fight or we can surf.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where you're like, if you were that guy, you'd think, maybe I'll not do this whole thing right now.
I remember thinking the same thing as you. Dang, that was a really dope way to say it.
Yeah.
Plus, that guy, obviously he didn't know who that was. I'm assuming, which would be kind of crazy if he didn't, or if he did know who he was. And then what if, hypothetically, later he found out who that was, and he'd be like,
occasionally I've had people say things like they kind of know, so they'll say oh, let's go, something like that. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, man, cool. That's always my answer. Oh, awesome, yeah, cool. Yeah. But you want to go now? Yeah. And then they're always like, oh, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, cool.
Just kidding. All right, next question. What do you typically wear when you meet the bosses of companies, and why?
Hey man, if you're working with Echelon Front, then pretty much what we all wear is the EF polo, the Echelon Front polo shirt, and we call what we wear business tactical.
Yeah.
Just polo shirt and a pair of pants. And the question is why? Well, that's just because to me it's the same kind of thing I've been talking about. It's just sort of a normal thing to wear, right? Yeah. Don't really travel as much as I travel as little as possible I can with a full suit. Yeah. And yeah, so just comfort and functionality. Yeah. There's the answer.
Yeah. And of course you don't show up in your shorts.
Yeah, no. We're professional.
And rash guard.
Yeah.
Remember he used to wear a suit, right? Like back in the
Yeah, I mean, and I still will wear a suit sometimes, but usually not, man. Usually not. Even usually people know who we are now. Yeah. And so if we're going to show up, they realize what they're getting, which is like, hey, these guys are going to come in and talk to us, and they know what the deal is. Yeah. And there's all the footage of us on the videos and stuff where we're wearing kind of the EF uniform. Business tactical. Get some.
All right, next question.
And I guess there is a small bit of like, hey, we're not standard business people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like, hey, like you're in a room with people with a bunch of suits on, and they're like, oh, who's presenting? Oh, it's that guy over there because he's wearing something different. Okay, we get it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just a little identifier, Echelon Front on the shirt. Yeah. All good.
All good. How do you grow better, faster, stronger with your romantic partner over time without being a brute?
I just kind of had to put this question in here because I don't really understand. I mean, just because you're bigger and faster and stronger doesn't mean you're a brute, right? What is that? How do you overcome that? Be nice to your girlfriend, your wife.
What's
your romantic partner?
Like, what does that mean though? Like, if you're working out with your romantic partner, or like
no. I think you're just like you're getting bigger and faster and stronger, and therefore you start treating your girlfriend like crap. Like no, it's like no. And actually, you'll probably be nicer because you're bigger and faster and stronger. So it's kind of a non-question, I guess. But I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, it is.
Because you think, hey, I'm gonna do squats today. Then I'm just gonna go yell at my woman.
No. Being a brute. Well, being a brute, that part, I could see that, because like let's say like you gained 20 pounds, 30 pounds. Let's just say. And it's like, oh, muscle, you're super strong now, I don't know. And, you come home, you're just more of like the stuff that you do, you're vacuuming, like you're just way more brutish. You are.
Yeah, so I don't know, vacuum harder?
No, you got to vacuum with more finesse. You got to focus on the finesse part of it.
No.
Otherwise, you're going to be all big, fast, and strong. And I think I understand the question. But here's a tip that I haven't been married forever, but significantly long. Here's what I found out. Like a lot of stuff, like as a guy, you think like, hey, I'm not really going to do that because like that's not important, Like you have a set of things that you think are important and they're based on certain ways of thinking. Then the girl's going to have things she thinks is important. And in my experience, which from what I understand is very common, that the things that some girls think are important, they can't really put their finger on it or why they feel important or whatever, but they just do, And the guy will be like, that's not important. You can't even explain why it's important. Therefore, I win the whole importance, significance argument, right? So at the end of the day, they're not going to do these things, just little things, Show me that you care, like these sensitive things that go against being faster, stronger, more brutish. But if you can keep in mind that little things, even if you don't think they're significant, actually do make your romantic partner happy, and if you can consistently maintain that regardless of how big, fast, or strong you get, that'll help. She's going to embrace your bigness, fastness, and strongness. Take it from me, I know.
Cool.
Next question. In cooperation and negotiation. Is there a tell to know when you're breaking your personal code and compromising too much? Is it a gut check or logical? This
is a weird one. There's a kind of a confusing question, so I'm just kind of answer it to the best of my ability. Well, the biggest thing I notice when I'm interacting with other people, the biggest thing that I pay attention to is, do I care about this particular thing because of me or because of it's going to help the team?
Yeah.
And if you can get through that, if you really just say to yourself, hey, am I doing this because I'm going to help the team, or am I doing this because it's about me? If you pay attention to those things, and I'm not saying that every time that you say, hey, you know what, I need to take care of me a little bit, because you have to remember that you have your strategic goals too, right? But most of the time, the success of the team is going to help your strategic goals. Mm-hmm. Now, so for me, my constant thing is, hey, why does this concern me? Does it concern me? It's basically, does this concern me because of my ego or not?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't concern me because of my ego, then it concerns me because it's not going to benefit the team. So let's help the team. So that's what I look at the most when I'm negotiating, when I'm cooperating. You know, if you and I were negotiating a deal, right? And I was going to buy a car from you, and I was like, you know, you want to sell it for me for 10 grand, and I want to get it for 9. How much of it? And you're like, okay, you know what, Jocko, I got it on the lot for 8,800. Can you give me $400 over what I paid for it and give me 9,200 or whatever? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
How much of that is me? It's just my ego. I just want to win the ego fight against you. And how much of it is me like, hey, that's actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And why not take care of this guy? Because I don't know, I don't really know you, but hey, man, maybe we'll buy something else in the future. Maybe you'll help. You know what I mean? So am I trying? Is it my ego, or is it just a bad deal? If you're like, hey, nope, it's 11,000, and I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to pay that. So it's not my ego. That's just not a good deal.
Right.
At 10 grand, it's not a great deal. At 9,200, it's a pretty damn good deal for me, and you're going to make some money. And I'm happy that you're going to make some money. Cool. You know what? Let's shake hands. Let's make a deal. There's times where this is the point. There's times where my ego, I'll be like, no, I don't care. I don't care if you're only going to make $200. That's your problem. You shouldn't have paid so much. When in my heart, I know like, hey, that's actually a good deal. I'm getting a really good deal. But my ego's not letting me to close it. That can be that can be a problem. So when I'm negotiating with someone, and it's not a good deal, they're not going to get me to do what they want me to do.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. If it's a fair deal, hey, we'll make it work. If it's not a fair deal, it's going to be problematic.
Yeah.
You don't want to present me with unfair deals, because I will not be accepting them.
Also, does it seem like, it's more of a question, I guess, to you, you kind of got to like be truthful to yourself, like consciously too, right? Because you like how you say, you got to ask yourself, is this good for me and my ego, or is this good for the team? Like totally. As far as me not compromising my, not compromising or my personal code or whatever.
Yeah, and there's values that I will not compromise.
Yeah.
Right? There's values that I will not compromise.
I would think that'd be for a very specific reason, you know how for like some people, they'll be like, I'm just not like that, but they don't really know why. Like, hey, well, I don't know, maybe because my dad told me that one time when we were fishing or whatever. So there's a difference, is what I'm saying. So, but here's the thing, and I say this because this is what I'll do sometimes. I'll be like, hey, this is more important because of, I don't know, my health.
Oh, you'll rationalize.
Yeah, and... Yeah, I'll essentially like twist the truth to myself to kind of explain to myself again how important this is, for the team. What is like, if that's important, there's other ways to do that.
So to your point, that's what I'm saying. When I'm thinking about decisions, I'm asking myself, hey, is this my ego, or am I doing the right thing for the team?
Yeah,
because that's what you should be checking on, right? Yeah. If you're doing it for yourself, 99% of the time, if you're doing something for yourself that hurts the team, the long term is not going to be beneficial to you.
Okay, yeah.
The long term is not going to be beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Because you're doing something for yourself. Everybody sees that. You don't think they see it, but they see it.
Yeah.
So you try and do things that are going to benefit the team.
Yeah.
And sometimes, 99% of the time, when you do something that benefits the team, you're going to benefit from it as well. Mm. But you have to see the long game, because sometimes the short game, it's like, oh no, if I do this for the team, that means I'm going to miss this weekend, and that sucks. Well, guess what? In the long term, when you work this weekend and cover for the other guys that couldn't make it in for whatever reason, you're going to have a better relationship with them, and they're going to cover for you next time. It's like, it's long term, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But you're worried about you.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Playing the long game again.
Yeah. Always got to play that long game.
Next question. Best way to get your team in. Okay. Best way to get your team to buy in to your vision.
Let it be their vision.
Oh,
let the vision come from them, right? Mm-hmm. And the more the vision comes from them, the more the plan comes from them, the more they buy into it. The more you force the vision and force the plan down their throat, the less buy-in that you're going to get from it. Mm. Now, if you're super persuasive, you can do a better job of coming up with a vision, but why do that? Mm. Why not say, hey, guys, you know what? We're going to put together the direction that this team is going. Give me some feedback. Give me some bullet points. Hit me. Now they all come back with bullet points. You assemble them together, and it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. Yeah. Boom. Everyone's on board. Yeah. That easy.
Our plan.
Yeah. So much easier with our plan. And if you're scared of that, and I think if I give the team the opportunity to come up with a plan, they're going to come up with a plan that sucks. Well, how well did you train them if they come up with a plan that sucks? Mm. You haven't trained them very well. Most of the time, if you train them decently, they're going to come up with a plan that's close enough to a decent plan that they can go and execute it. We can all execute it together. That can be part of the vision. Let's go.
Hey, Jocko, what would be better verbal communication with concept of prioritize and execute when talking to my wife? She oftentimes feels overwhelmed with how many decisions she has to make. She hates when I use the words of prioritize and execute.
Well, the root problem there isn't that she hates the words prioritize and execute. The problem is that you're telling her what to do. And that's instead of being like, hey, if you just prioritize and execute, there's at least a 50% chance that she doesn't even want to hear your suggestion. She's just telling you because she's venting to you. Yeah. So for you to be like, man, those are a lot of decisions to make. That's hard. Yeah. If you were to say to her, how do you handle this? Because I know you're doing this every day, girl. I'm impressed. How do you do that? And then she says, well, it's hard, but here's what I do. Yeah. So if it was just a matter of renaming it, it's like, hey, we'll call it, hey, you know what you need to do is grade and go. Yeah. Or what you need to do is rank and roll. Sure. What you need to do is triage and check off. What's what you need to do. Yeah. Or designate and do. That's what, there's a bunch of different ways you could phrase it, but that's not what's making her respond in a negative way. She's responding in a negative way because you're saying, hey, here's all you need to do is prioritize and execute. Right. No. What she needs is some sympathy, some listening, allowing to vent, and then you can say, hey, if you've done that properly, you can say, well, I did read that book, and they kind of say when there's a bunch of crazy things going on like you've got going on, they say to do the same thing that I see you do, which is you pick the most important one, and then you kind of focus on that. That's pretty cool.
And you do that pretty well, by the way.
You do that well. Yeah, you do that really well. So just take a little different approach, man.
Yeah, I feel
it's not just the words. The words are not what. I hate to break the news to you, bro. The words are not pissing her off. You are. Listen to her.
It seems
you ever notice some people, they come to you with a problem, they don't want a solution.
Oh, yeah.
That happens all the time. They just want you to sit there and listen to them. Yeah. My wife does that for sure.
Yes, sir.
For sure. Does too. Hey, there's this problem. Oh, why don't you do this? It's not that easy. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell me more about the problem, and I'll sit over here and listen.
Don't say that, by the way. You got to do that part.
Yeah.
It's almost like, well, it is like, it seems like that they don't mind so much the suffering of the problem. Suffering, I'm overusing that word, I know, but like they don't mind the suffering. They don't want to suffer alone. So if like, oh yeah, I'm having like these issues or whatever, first is like, hey, come suffer with me, sympathize, empathize, or whatever. We can suffer together. That's why I'm coming to you in the first place, so I can get closer to you. Whatever. Yeah. I don't know that I'm totally
reflect and diminish. Do you remember when I talked about that?
Yes.
That's like such a good tactic in this situation. Reflect the emotions back to them, but diminish them a little bit. So if they're all freaking mad about something, you go, oh, I can't believe that. Yeah. But you don't be as mad as them, but you don't be, hey, calm down. You don't say, hey, here's just prioritize and execute. That's a rough one.
Actually, to be honest, like I've felt that before, where I'd come to my brother's typically the one, like I've come to him with like a problem. And here's the thing, I didn't want like sympathy or empathy primarily, but I wanted a little bit, so you can't just sit there with your apple or whatever, all casual, like, yeah, all you got to do is fucking this, like kind of like you're so done. You get this feeling. I'm not saying
by the way,
this.
You want to know why your brother or you or whoever can look at that problem and like come up with a solution? It's because they're detached. They're de facto detached from the problem. Yeah. So when you're all wrapped up in the problem, you're like, hey, I don't know what to do because I got this, this, and this. And your brother's like, well, just do that. Yeah. And you're like, ugh, you get mad. Yeah. But he's able to see what to do because he's on the outside.
Yeah.
So if you can learn to detach yourself, you won't have to rely on getting other people to help you.
Yeah.
If you can't detach and you're all wrapped up in the emotions of the situation, you're gonna have to go with someone to help. And then when you do, don't get mad at them when they just tell you the solution.
Yeah. No, I dig it.
But when you reverse the roles and you take ownership of trying to provide solutions, you got to realize that it's your fault that your solution isn't being welcomed.
Yeah. And that's kind of the point where like I'm trying to gain an understanding, because it's easy when you're detached and this person is like, why are you complaining about it? Like, because this is how you feel on the front of your mind. You're like, why are you complaining about this? Why don't you just solve that problem and never complain about it ever again? That's the feeling the other person has, that detached person, in this case, the husband or whatever. So what I did was I imagined my situation that I'm on the other side where I kind of like, I know what it feels like to kind of want some sympathy. I don't want sympathy and that's it, but of course, but I want some of it. So imagine that feeling that I got from my brother at times when I come to him with a problem that's bothering me or whatever. And the fact that it's bothering me means nothing. And so the fact that the way he presents a solution with no empathy and sympathy almost says, actually, it feels like it says, you're so dumb. Like, you're dumb.
Yeah.
Like, why are you wrapped up about this thing? You're dumb kind of thing.
So from a leadership perspective, from his perspective, he should recognize that what he needs to do is massage your ego a little bit, make you feel good about it, be like, oh, man, that's a hell of a problem to have. One thing maybe you could do, I don't know if I don't know if I could do it, but you could probably do it because you're a little bit better at this kind of thing. But what if, you just do that little jiu-jitsu to these people.
That's a good tactic right there when you say, like, what you kind of do. Kind of like you're like one of these individuals, one of the rare people who knows how to deal with it, and it's like empowering.
The thing that you do that I can't really do is I see you do it though. Is you prioritize and execute.
Yep.
Wish I could do that. I just get all scatterbrained. Start focusing on all kinds of different things at the same time, and that's a problem.
Yeah, man.
So there you go. Get some.
Next question. My warrior kids want to know: is warrior kid number 3 in the works?
Yes, warrior kid 3 is in the works. I am on chapter 10. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've been on chapter 10 for a couple days. Not because it's taken me a long time to write chapter 10, but I didn't write yesterday or the day before because we were doing multiple podcasts, which is a bummer. Yeah, but be back on the path today, as a matter of fact.
Well, technically, you're on the path. Your path is just super wide. You had to switch lanes for a little bit. You miss the exit, but good, boom, you're back on in that lane on the same path.
So and we're looking at spring publication for that. Once again, getting it out there. Really having fun writing this book as the characters develop.
More complex.
Yeah,
some complexity.
There's some complexities. There's some situations that Mark hasn't really had to deal with yet. The primary being Danny Reinhardt. So brace yourself for the impact of Danny Reinhardt.
Brace yourself. All right, next question. Your lifestyle is intense and intentional. How do I even get started living like that?
Let's just break this down real easy, okay? Number one, if you want to live like more focused in your life, choose to. Yeah. Decide that you're going to actually live like that. Do that. Write down whatever it is you want to do. And then before you go to bed at night, Write down some things that you can do tomorrow that are going to help you move towards the goals that you have. And then set your alarm clock for early in the morning. Wake up and do the things that you wrote down. Stay on that path. That's it.
Yeah. And do you think that you've just sort of grown accustomed to just dealing with it that way? Because, you know, the more you do it, So
absolutely.
So that's kind of the hard part, right? To get off the ground. You see what I'm saying?
To break the gravitational pull of laziness and apathy. Yes.
Yeah. And of course that. But I feel like that in this kind of situation, like when you live how intently intense, sure, but you've kind of always been intense. But that intentional situation, because it's pretty easy. If you know a goal, it's pretty, I don't say easy, but it's simple. Like to reach that goal is really clear, you know, like you're going to have to fight through obstacles, all this other stuff. But if you don't really have an intentional like goal, it's hard to just kind of float there and be like, I need to be, I don't know, vaguely successful. It's like it makes the whole deal harder. And so a lot of times like a normal person they don't have specific goals for every aspect of their life. You know, they'll have one in maybe with their career or something like that, or fitness or something like that. But everything else is just sort of, hey, I'm living day by day, doing the best I can kind of thing. But if you can, whether it be write it down or whatever, if you can have it in your brain consciously that, or remember essentially like what these goals are, it makes it a lot more clear. And then the more you kind of follow those goals, the more it becomes like habit, like you. That's what I think.
Check.
Next question. How do the finest civilian leaders differ from the finest military leaders? Or in other words, what character traits do military leaders develop that are more difficult or rare for civilian leaders to develop?
The leadership is leadership, and the good civilian leaders have the same good qualities that the good military leaders have, and vice versa. And Leif was talking about this the other day, that, you know, he tells people like, hey man, I wish you were in the military. Wish you would have been good, you know, you would have been a good infantry officer. You would have been a good SEAL platoon leader. That would have been cool if you were in the teams, because you're a good leader in the civilian sector. You're a good leader you would be a good leader in the military. So and now there are strengths and weaknesses for leaders in both of those situations. There's military leaders. You take 10 military leaders, there's all kinds of strengths and weaknesses different between each one of those 10. And there's all kinds, you take 10 civilian leaders, and there's all kinds of different strengths and weaknesses amongst those 10. And if you flip them back and forth, it doesn't matter. There's still going to be random strengths and weaknesses. Some guys are good at presenting things. Some guys are good at simplifying things. Some guys are good at articulating things. And those groups wash out regardless. There's great military leaders that aren't very articulate, but they figure out a way to get done. There's great civilian leaders that aren't very articulate, but they figure out a way. There's great military leaders that are really good at simplifying things. There's great civilian leaders that are good at simplifying. There's people that are not good at that. So they find the correct solution, the people that will complement them as leaders, and move forward. But no huge difference. Actually, there's no difference. There's good leadership and there's bad leadership.
Huh. Yeah,
that's it.
Hey, Jocko, love your books and podcasts. When it comes down to the wire and you need to make a quick and tactical decision amidst chaos, how do you keep your head straight?
This is just, everyone knows the answer to this by now. Detach. Take a step back off the line, take a step back from the tactical situation that's going on, turn your head, look around, see what's going on, assess it properly, unemotionally, and then make a decision. That's it. You got to learn to detach.
Easy money. Next question. Jocko.
No, it's not easy. If it was easy, people wouldn't ask me that question 12 times a day.
Simple, not easy.
It is simple. It is simple, but it's definitely not easy.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you, it's not only not easy, it's almost so hard that you don't even like see it happening. It's like you're blind to it.
Most people are blind to it. That's why it's such a huge advantage from a leadership perspective. If you can be 1 inch above everyone else, you can see infinitely further than they can. Because let's face it, they have a limited, when you're at one level, when you're at 6 feet, you can see what you can see. You go to 8 feet, you can see things that they can't see. They literally can't see them. So therefore, you know things that they don't know. And all of a sudden, you seem brilliant because you can literally see things that they literally can't see. So take a step back, turn your head, look around, detach from your emotions. Detach from the chaos. That's it.
And the emotions, that's like one of the major things that's making you blind to this stuff.
For sure. Yeah. Whether it's emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's frustration, whether it's panic, whether it's stress, all those emotions will have the same result on you and your decision making, which is you won't see what's actually happening.
Yeah. Jocko, how do you build a relationship with a boss that consistently loses his temper on a regular basis?
Stay calm. Don't overreact. Let them vent to you, and don't make a big deal out of them losing their temper. Just be like, just absorb it and be like, hey, it's all good, boss. Yep. Let them vent. And then when they calm down a little bit, just don't go like, man, I'm glad you calmed down. No, just be like, say, okay, hey, here's where we're at with this decision. I'm going to bring this to the troops or whatever, just be calm. And then eventually, hopefully, you get a relationship that's strong enough that you can actually say something to them like, hey, man, I know things drive you crazy, but, it's always a lot better when you're just kind of calm and everyone kind of has a lot of respect for that,
Yeah.
But again, that's when you got to be careful with, because they might just go, what are you talking about? You don't know about respect. They might lose their temper right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just going to be calm, not overreact, absorb, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Next question. I'm struggling to be an effective leader because I'm told that I don't have the right tone. I'm too direct and coarse, and I'm not too sure how to fix it. I'd appreciate any and all help. Thanks in advance.
If you can record yourself while you're talking to people, like when you're on the phone with someone, just record it. Just take out your cell phone and record and see what you sound like, because you might be surprised at what you sound like. A lot of times people don't realize what they sound like. You might have to overcompensate for a little while and be like overly pleasant and nice to people, which to them might sound like normal, but to you it'll sound like you're being just totally over the top nice, because you're like, how are you today? And they're thinking, oh, that's nice, he's actually having a conversation with me. And in your mind you're like, these are just pleasantries. I don't think I should be it's like, no, just calm down. It's actually great feedback. It's awesome that people have actually told you that you are too direct and too coarse. So what does that mean? You're offending people. If you're offending people, do they listen to you? The answer is no. So how do you not offend people? And in your mind, you're thinking, hey, this is the way I am. I'm just one of these people that's direct. I just put the word out. And it's like, no, actually all you do is piss people off, offend them, and now they don't listen to you. So don't be that person. Let's try and build relationships. Make that your key goal. Make your goal not to get your point across to them, but to build a relationship with them. Make that your goal. And then the rest of it will start to come together. Get you moving in the right direction.
And sometimes, I'm not saying this person is like this, but sometimes people who are direct and coarse, like they sort of take pride in it.
For sure.
So if you can search your mind and be like, hey, am I taking pride in this a little bit? Know that like you're going full speed in the wrong direction there with that. If that's the case, that makes it a lot easier.
Check your ego. Yep. Affirmative.
Next question. I serve in the Coast Guard and operate in high-risk surf operations where not only do I have victims in the water who have a high risk of dying, but also my people and myself have a high probabilities of being injured or killed. I enjoy my job thoroughly and perform on the job, but it's the waiting that's brutal. How do you manage stress in the off time so it's not overwhelming?
Look, you got to train hard. You got to be prepared. You got to rehearse. You got to drill worst case scenarios. You got to be in awesome physical condition. You got to do all those things. You prepare as much as you can. You can't worry about things that you can't control. So the things that you can't control, what can you control? You can be in good physical shape. You can prepare for your equipment, make sure you know how to operate your equipment. You can drill worst case scenarios to make sure your team understands the procedures that you're supposed to do. So you take control of all the things that you can control. You do those to the nth degree. The things that you can't control, you just gotta not worry about them, because that's you're actually less prepared because you're worrying about other things. You can't sleep because there's a storm coming and you know that there's going to be some rescues. It's like, hey, you've prepared, you've trained, you've got your equipment all ready, you've rehearsed with your teammates. Like, that's what we do. And there's some things that I can't control, and I'm okay with that. And not to get too crazy, but like worst case scenario, and not to get too like dark. Worst case scenario, what happens? Worst case scenario, what happens? You die. That's the worst case scenario that happens. Okay. Okay. So you've got your insurance taken care of. You got your SGLI set up. You know, you've written letters to your family to tell them what to do, and that you've had a great job, and that you loved what you're doing, and that's the way it goes. You know, part of life is death, 100%. Think about that, 100%. So if you can compartmentalize the things that you can control and say, okay, these are the things I've got control of, and then you look at the worst case scenario, which is the worst case scenario. I mean, I guess the worst case scenario is like, hey, if you could, one of your teammates, you know, dies, that seems to me to always be the worst thing. Or you die. Well, what are you going to do? So to prevent my teammate from dying, I'm going to train, prepare, do everything I can in my power. And one of the things in my power to do is to not be scared of things that I can't control, or not worry about things that I can't control. And then, like, hey, I could die doing this job. That could happen. What do you do about that? You prepare for it. You write your will. You make sure that your W-2 or page 2, I believe it's called, your page 2 in the military service record, so that they know what to do with your finances. You fill out your SGLI form. You write a letter to your friends and family. That's what you do. And then you go out and you do your job. The fear of death that you have in your mind is more likely to cause a problem. It's more, you have more, if you're afraid of death, you're more likely to die than if you say, you know what, if this happens, God forbid, guess what? I'm living the life I want to live, and I'm going to die doing this. It's like that. If you can get over that hurdle right there, that's a huge thing. And the more comfortable you are with that, the less chance of you actually dying there is, because you won't be scared of it. You won't be hesitant. You won't be paranoid. You won't lose sleep. You'll be like, okay. So just truly think about it. Like, man, you're doing an important job. You're going to try and save people's lives. There's inherent risk in that, but it's what you want to do. It's what you chose to do. You deal with that. And if you can get through that, that's a huge step. Does this mean you want to die? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that at all. But if you're like, you know what? I could die. That's one of the possible outcomes here. It's highly unlikely, but it is a possible outcome. If it happens, I've lived the best possible way I can. I've prepared for my family, friends to be taken care of, to understand what happened, and I'm okay with that. That's my recommendation.
Makes sense. Jocko, I'm very goal-oriented. My friends say that they want me to achieve this and that, yet they still are vaping, partying, being lazy, and overall don't walk the talk. I want to be an AF Special Tactics.
Air Force
Special Tactics officer, and I don't have time for those distractions. How do I get them on track?
Well, this is a pretty straightforward one for me. What I do is I walk the walk and keep walking. And if these guys want to walk the walk with me, cool. But if they want to vape and party and be lazy, those aren't the kind of guys you want around with your team anyways. You know, so unless they get on the path that leads to the right place, I mean, you can tell them, hey, man, this isn't going to get you there. But don't spend a bunch of time trying to pick up and drag people that don't want to drag themselves. Not that you go into an organization like Special Tactics in the Air Force. You don't want to be carrying other people. You don't want to have to motivate other people. You want people that want to do the job themselves. So don't spend a bunch of time with these people that don't want to get after it.
Makes sense. Jocko, when things start moving fast and feel out of control because you're really getting after it, work, family, jiu-jitsu, and countless other things, how do you slow it down and get the feeling back of being in control?
What you do in this situation is go harder. you go harder. What you do is, and this is, think of it like this. Think of it as a sprint. You're getting bogged down. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Grab a hold of a bunch of them and sprint and get caught up. That's what you do. You sprint, you get caught up. I do that kind of right now, and I didn't start doing that. I really started having to do these little sprints that I do sometimes now, like maybe a year ago, where I just have to just buckle down for 3 days and do nothing but work. Just that's it. Nothing but work. I'm in the middle of one right now. Like just what I did over the last few days is like work, and more work. So it's a sprint, but then you get caught up, you get things under control, and then you can go back to a more sustainable pace, because you can't sprint forever. You cannot sprint forever, factually, right? That doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if you think you're going to run alongside a vehicle because you can sprint, that's not going to work. Eventually the vehicle is going to outpace you and you're going to be left behind. So you have to choose a race that you can win. But sometimes, just like in a running race, you got to sprint to get ahead. And then once you get ahead, you can go back to a sustainable pace. But that's what I do. I go into like a little period of mass production. I prefer slow and steady. Absolutely. I prefer just to keep on the disciplined path every day, doing what needs to be done. You know, that we talked about planting a tree earlier. Like writing a book, nothing feels better writing a book than when you look up after a month of writing and you got 30,000 words because you wrote 1,000 words a day. To sit down and write 30,000 words is a gut check. It's a gut check. For me it is. Because I don't enjoy doing that for long periods of time. I don't enjoy sitting there typing because the words are already pretty much in my head. So it's just a manual labor. But it's not manual labor where you get to move rocks. It's a manual labor of pecking it into a keyboard. That's not fun for me. There's zero physical benefit. But to look up after a month and say, I got 30,000 words, that's almost a book, right?
Yeah.
So I prefer to do that. But sometimes, because I've saddled myself with many different things going on right now, sometimes I get behind and I have to sprint. I have to just say, okay, you know what? This is going to suck for 3 days, but I'm going to get back on track. And here we go. So that's what I do. When I start feeling like other things are kind of getting the hang of me, like, hey, man, maybe you have to, for work, you have to sacrifice jujitsu for whatever, 2 days. You're like, yep, I'm not going to train, but that's going to save me a total of 5 hours in the next couple days, and I can get a lot of work done in 5 hours. I didn't do jujitsu yesterday. Did I want to? Yes, I did. But I said, okay, I'm going to sprint right now. I got to get this other stuff done, and I had to prioritize. So that's what you have to do. And guess what? You know, then you get through that sprint. Now you can go back to your sustainable thing, which is jiu-jitsu every day, which is work out every day, which is, you know, write every day, do your work every day. So try that. Try just buckling down. Tell your family, tell your jiu-jitsu instructor, be like, hey, listen, I'm gonna be gone for 3 days. I got to get caught up. So stand by, and boom, tell your family, look, hey, I'm sorry for the next 3 days. You're not going to hear much from me because I'm going to stay at work late. I'm going to get a bunch of stuff done and just sprint hard and give them a little reward at the end. Hey, when I get back on Tuesday or when I get back on the Friday, we're going to go out for dinner. We're going to have a good time. But I got to sprint, got to get caught up. So there you go.
That's my procedure. Really good little tactic right there.
Yeah, it is a good tactic.
You know?
Oh, a little reward. You like that?
Well, the whole deal, both of them, like basically to make sure that you communicate with all these people that might be affected by your thing, even like in small ways, like how you say, hey, I'm going to sprint right now. You'd be, well, I'm sometimes surprised on how that little thing is so effective. Like, you know, like, I don't know, I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu at, you know, a weird different time that maybe my family's sort of depending on me, not in a big way, but just a little bit depending on me being there, right? And I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu instead. If I say 1 week before I do that, if I say, hey, on this day, you know, like, I understand, hey, usually I'm here, I dig it, but hey, I'm going to go this day. This training just kind of means a lot to me this day and time, whatever. A week before.
Heads up, they love it.
Love night and day. Try do it the hour before. versus the week before. Night and day. One situation is like, yes, oh, we got your back. Oh, do it. And the other one is like, disdain.
Guess what my wife thinks?
What?
She thinks I'm going to jiu-jitsu every day, and I am.
Yeah.
But she's just like, so.
I'm
in
sure
fact,
at some
it's surprising to her if I'm ever like, oh, she'll be like, oh, you didn't leave yet?
Yeah,
and I'm like, no,
here.
I'm actually working. And she'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's when she realized I got some work to do.
Yeah. Man, but that's that's good to remember it,
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get caught up in like, hey, this is me and my sprint. I'm the one going to have to buckle down, sort of thing. So it kind of maybe gets in the way of you thinking like, hey, it's for other people too, you know what I'm saying? And then that additional one where it's like, yeah, when I'm done, you got another reward. Because then if you communicate, they don't need the reward. I mean, it depends on who it is. But typically it would make sense for them not to need the reward because we're all good.
The reward scenario.
Don't do it too much. They expect it. But that's a good I think. That's good. I'm gonna put that one into rotation. Next question. Hey, Jocko, a lot of respect for you and your work. I have a question. How do you draw the line between doing things you're uncomfortable with to develop and just torturing yourself unnecessarily?
It's a pretty straightforward question, actually, and a pretty straightforward answer. Does it benefit you or not? Does it benefit you? And there is some level of torture that benefits you because it just keeps you mentally and physically tougher. So there is benefit to some level of torture, right? Mm-hmm. There's also a level of torture that is not beneficial for you. Actually, it takes you backwards, and it's going to injure you. It's going to break you down. It's going to break you down mentally. It's going to break you down physically. There's times, like I've talked about this, like there's times when I've gotten on a plane, where I get on a plane, this is when I know I'm just done training, which is I get on a plane and because normally on a plane I can like really hammer out some work. Mm-hmm. I can get a podcast, I can read a book, I can just really go hard because I don't sign up for Wi-Fi on the planes. I just do work. And when I get on a plane and I'm just like, I'm going to watch him. I'm going to go into this thing and watch. And I remember the last time I did, I watched Zoolander.
Yeah, man.
Which is a funny movie, but there's zero positive benefit to my humanity by watching Zoolander.
Yeah.
But that's it. So I just like okay, mentally just need a damn break,
Yeah.
And same thing with physical. Like there's times where you're physically there's times. This is an interesting one. When you're training jiu-jitsu, if I have an injury that's recovering, and let's say normally I do 8 rounds, 10 rounds. When I have an injury that's recovering, I have to have the discipline to say, you know what, I'm only doing 4 rounds today. Yeah. Because when you get to the 5th, 6th round, I'm tired. I'm making mistakes. 7th, 8th round, now I'm actually going to get injured again. Mm-hmm. So I want to recover from the injury. So I have to have the discipline to say no, because the lack of discipline says I'm just going to train more. I'm just going to train harder.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to take a little bit of a breather. Mm. And so if you're doing something that's uncomfortable, but it's making you stronger or smarter or faster, yeah, that's good. Mm. If you're doing something that's uncomfortable and it's not beneficial to you, then that's not smart to do, except for the occasional gut check, which is, hey, this is just going to suck.
Yeah.
This is just going to suck, and I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
You're kind of different than people. In the concept that you're talking about, I think, yeah, that's universal, which is good. Like, you talk about like going on the plane, right? Even like the way you're like, that is no good for humanity. I know that was like a joking way of putting it, but the thing is that is good for you. And it's...
What is? Zoolander,
whatever you watch, or something that's like not work. Because it's like, compared to a workout. Rob Jones does this a lot. He'll compare it to like lifting weights or a workout, which is good. I think near perfect analogy, the working out thing. It's essentially just your rest between sets. That's all it is. So if it's like, yeah, you don't get rest between sets. Oh yeah, see how much weight you can lift then. Probably not that much. Mm. But there's a difference between resting for like 2 minutes between your sets and then resting one day.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes, though, sometimes you can say, oh, I need a rest, but you don't really need
That's
one.
what I mean. Yeah.
And so you got to be careful of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go, oh, this is just torture, so I don't want to do it. But you're really just being mentally weak.
Right.
So you have to be aware. You have to do things that suck sometimes.
Yeah. So
for sure. Some workouts just suck.
Yeah.
And they're awful. Yeah. And they're torture, but they make you stronger. They make you better, and they make you tougher. Yeah. So you do them.
Yeah, so perfect. And then if you want to do the workout analogy, right, where you're like, okay, so there's those two dichotomies, if you will. So it's like, okay, rest between sets, cool, I dig it. You do work, and then you rest between sets. That's the whole thing, right, the whole format. But you're like, okay, if I need 2 minutes of rest in between my sets for this specific workout, for this specific outcome or results from the workout, then boom, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rest for 2 minutes. So there's a difference in that case. There's a difference between resting 2 minutes and then resting 15 minutes. You don't need all that rest. Now you're just cruising. Now you're just avoiding the next set or putting it off or doing whatever. There's a difference. But on the other side, the more extreme side of the spectrum, the workout can be like not 2 minutes rest. The whole workout could last 2 hours long, no rest between sets. That's the workout. But when the workout's done, you still got to rest and recover from that workout. So just because you don't have a set amount of sets in your work day to day, still doesn't mean you need that rest between sets, or at the very least rest between workouts.
One thing that I got used to in the military, and I see it in companies all the time, like I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never stop and never get everything done. Yeah. That's something to think about. Yeah. So then you have to say to yourself, well, how productive am I going to be, and what's important and what's not important? And you got to make sure that you're right. If you take no rest, you won't be able to function properly. Yeah. And for me, like I could write 24 hours a day and not write all the books I want to write. I could do jiu-jitsu 24 hours a day and not get as good as I want to get. I could work out 24 hours a day and not get as strong as I want to get. So you have to figure out how to balance all those different items together to figure out, like, okay, what is an acceptable level at each one of these components? Yeah.
And it's going to take kind of identifying the results that you want that are acceptable to you. You know, so yeah, like what do you call it? There's like NASCAR, right? You ever watch Streets of Thunder? I don't know, the one with Tom Cruise that he's a NASCAR, something of Thunder, Days of Thunder. Okay. Anyway, he's like racing, and he's like, hey, you got to do a pit stop. Everybody got to do a pit stop, but it seems weird, when you're like racing and you're like, hey, I'm ahead of everybody. I'm not gonna stop right now. But bro, your wheels are gonna fall off, bro. So you got to pit stop sometimes.
Sure.
Watch some Zoolander or whatever. And then when you're done, you can be way more productive because those tires are new now. They can fly around the track, grip, everything. See what I'm saying?
Concur.
So it's part of the game. That's what I'm saying. Next question. How does the introduction you gave to Mike in the equipment room square with extreme ownership? No judgment, just...
Oh yeah, so when Mike Sorelli came into Task Unit Bruiser because his other task unit had some leadership issues, and Mike was sort of the collateral damage in that whole thing, and so they moved him from that task unit, which was Task Unit Charlie, into Task Unit Bruiser. And when he came in, I brought him into the equipment room at SEAL Team 3, which is where I would counsel my junior officers, because there was construction going on at SEAL Team 3 at the time, and there was no ceiling, so everyone could hear you in your office. And so I would go into this equipment room and brief guys if need be. And I just brought Mike Sorelli in there, and I had a counseling letter for him to sign, and it said, there's no drama in Task Unit Bruiser. Don't bring any into it. And that's it. It was like really straightforward. I'm gonna have to ask him if he still has it, but I don't know why this person thinks that doesn't square with extreme ownership. As far as I'm concerned, that is, I had a guy that was coming into a unit that had been together for 7 or 8 months, gone through workup, and getting ready for deployment, and I just had to take ownership of the fact that I had a guy that was showing up that I didn't know. I did get feedback. I got feedback from multiple people, multiple sources. And my bro source was like, hey, Sorelli, he's fucking good to go. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I knew he was good to go, but still, I wanted to set the expectation right for him so that he knew, like, man, he might think that was his first task unit he was with, He might think this is the way it is. Yeah, it's like, no, that's not the way it is. So for me, it was just, hey, we're just taking ownership. for me, it was, hey, I'm just going to take ownership of this, make sure he knows what's going on, make sure he understands the expectations, make sure that we're not going to have any drama in here, because we don't have any drama. There's no drama.
Yeah.
Like, we have problems, we solve them.
Yeah.
We don't backstab each other and tell on each other and stab each other in the back. No, we have a problem, we get together, we solve the problem. That's how it is. And so that's all. I don't even think that's I'm not even quite sure. I'd have to get more details on this question to figure out why that didn't seem like the right thing to do. From my perspective, it was, it's great when you have somebody come on board and they go, hey man, here's the expectations that are going on.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, maybe because that was before he did anything. It's not like he did something and then you were like, hey, you're bringing drama. Don't do that here. It wasn't that.
It was like, hey man, we don't have drama here.
Right.
Don't bring it in here.
Yeah.
You good with that?
Yeah.
And Mike Sorelli said, roger that, sir.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So,
and you know how much drama he brought in? Zero.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a way, I mean, I don't know, looking at it from the outside, it seems like that was, the essence of extreme ownership. You're going to use some anticipated problems. I'm going to do everything to mitigate, whatever, all these things. And I'm going to go a preempted problem solving mode tactfully.
Yeah.
In your way, in the locker room or whatever.
Yeah. It wasn't even like I was like, you better not. It didn't even accuse him or anything.
You didn't punish him.
I actually literally said, there's no drama here.
Yeah.
Don't bring any. Yeah. I didn't say like, we know, I didn't like to point my finger. No. I was like, hey, man. Yeah. Hey. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, you know what I'm thinking in my mind? Hey, I got a prior enlisted Marine. Yeah. That's going to be in my task unit. I got another body, and he's an experienced guy with, yeah, I was totally stoked. Yeah, I was totally stoked, man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Dig it.
No factor.
All right.
I think we got time for one more, man.
One more question. Sure. How do you stay on the warpath when everything seems to be going wrong? Good question.
You think that's a good question? Well, here's what I think is strange about that question. It's sort of like the question I just answered about like sprinting.
Yeah.
It's easy when things are going right, it's easy to stay on the warpath. Right? You don't even need to be on the warpath when things are going great. Yeah. Because everything's happy. There's no war going on. You're at peace. People are, delivering food to you. And you're getting a massage.
Yeah.
There's no, you're not like, oh, I need to be on the warpath right now while I'm getting a back massage, while I'm getting food delivered to me. That's not happening. When the actual time that you need to go on the warpath and you need to go harder on the warpath is when things are going wrong. That's when you need to dig deeper. That's when that's when the whole like idea of saying good, that's when it happens. When things are when you're getting tested by the world. That's when you want to do it. So when you get tested by the world, that's when you get the opportunity to show the world what you're made of. That's when you get to say, bring it on. Bring it on. Oh, things are going wrong. Bring it on. I actually look forward to that. Because this is when I get to exercise my discipline. This is when I get to show the discipline. I get to put the discipline to work. It's the moment I have been waiting for. Because let's face it, if things were easy, then I could just sit around and slack off. Right? That's what could happen. Mm-hmm. When things are easy, when things are going right, that's when you actually can slack off a little bit because things are going right. I don't recommend it. I recommend actually when things are going right, you go hard. Mm-hmm. But when things are going wrong, you need to go even harder. So if everything's going wrong, it doesn't matter to me because I'm on the path. I'm going to stay on the path, on the war path. And I'm going to get my situation rectified. Stat. Get some. All right. That's like 2 hours or something right now. So let's, I don't know, speaking of the war path.
The path.
Yes.
Yes.
How could we get people to, how could we assist with people being on the warpath?
Step one, jiu-jitsu. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, maybe that's step Yeah, man, that's step one, straight up.
It
depends on where you are to begin with, so let's face it. Anyway, jiu-jitsu, so you need your gi, right? No need to ask anymore. Get an Origin gi, originmain.com, 100%. Not
100% made in America.
Yes, that too.
100% good gi to get, the gi to get, and also 100% made in America. Yeah. Made in America.
From the dirt to the gi top, straight up. Yeah, because let's face it.
From the topsoil to the gi top.
From the topsoil to the top of the gi. Yeah, fully. And for those who care about the aesthetics of the gi, these aesthetics are, how should I say, made specifically for jiu-jitsu for sure. But
by jiu-jitsu people.
By jiu-jitsu people, yes. But they're cut. You know how they're cut like for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? And they look dope too, by the way. If you care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Also,
Jocko, you want to make you don't care, but you care.
No, I am and always have been impressed by specifically Dragon Weave. Come on.
Yeah.
When you see a Dragon Weave gi, are you not
I still am impressed with it. You know, when you see
Have you seen the machine that they figure out how to weave that thing? It's like an old. It's in Pete's office, and it's like I'll have Pete post a picture of it, but it looks like a mechanical thing from 1898. I bet you it's from 1930. I bet you the thing is actually from 1930. We'll have to ask Pete what year it is, but that's the actual thing. It's the old school thing that you figure out. You program is the word, but it's nothing. There's nothing digital about this. You program what the fabric is going to look like from this machine. It's freaking. It's cool. Anyways, so that's the Dragon Weave. Also, rash guards, also 100% made in America. T-shirts, other things.
Some cool stuff on there for sure.
Yeah.
Supplements as well.
Yeah, and supplements for your joints, for your being as a human, and for your operational capabilities.
Yes.
So, joint warfare for your joints, krill oil for your being
and
joints, discipline for your operational capability, lift your cognitive and your physical capabilities, and then of course we got that milk,
some additional protein for that. One, I had a big milk shake, put dark chocolate in it, by the way.
You said that on the last podcast.
Yeah, but this time I put it again. Yes, and I put dark chocolate.
How was it?
Outstanding.
With what flavor milk?
Peanut butter chocolate.
Is that your go-to?
Currently it is. It was the mint.
It is for me too.
Yeah, so it's in a rotation, and it's all based on like how I feel.
I'm gonna tell you, I probably have had peanut butter 6 times in a row.
Yeah.
Which it used to be not happening. It would be mint 6 times in a row, and then right now I'm just so down with that peanut butter.
Just down on the peanut butter train situation.
Yeah.
But these supplements overall, especially the joint ones, like milk, it's easy. It's like a kind of, and it's just me alone with my thoughts. I'm like, this is kind of a glamorous one. The protein, hell yeah, my muscles. Yeah. Right? But the joint warfare, they don't get like the glamour.
Here's what one of my buddies was telling me yesterday. One of my brethren SEALs is using vanilla gorilla. And he's like, I'm putting it in everything.
Yeah.
Like everything he makes. Just coffee, boom, vanilla. Gorilla.
Yeah. I've done that.
Tea, boom. Yeah, I don't know about tea, but his main thing was coffee.
He's a psycho. Yeah.
He's putting it in his coffee.
Yeah.
And he said it's like a sweetener, but obviously it's like not, right? It's not bad for you.
Yeah, it is a sweetener because it makes it more sweet.
He was you know when you talk to people and they get like the little kid look in their eyes. Yeah, he had that. He's like, I put the vanilla gorilla in there. And I just hit it with I could say he was getting fired up when he said he hit it with the blender stick. I was like, right on, man.
What's it, the blender stick? The wand one? Yeah. So technically I do the same thing, but I put the coffee in. It's like an espresso or whatever in the milk.
Oh, dang.
So it's like a milkshake, like but the same deal, but I'm sure the ratios are different.
I don't even like coffee.
It is, and that's the thing. It is. So if you like coffee ice cream, You know, like that kind of stuff. Where coffee ice cream and like black coffee, those are two different experiences for sure. So coffee ice cream, that's a delicious flavor when it's like nice, delicious. So it's kind of the same deal with the milk.
Speaking of delicious, strawberry and chocolate Warrior Kid milk for your children. This could get some kind of a, you know, I'm not going to put myself in for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Sure. Yeah.
But like, hey, we are helping the children of the world in a big way.
Yeah.
With strawberry and chocolate Warrior Kid milk.
Big time.
Because there's no other thing that you're just, as a kid, you're about that little Snickers bar hitter, right?
Yeah, or these bad snacks in the
or bad snack hitters, right?
Sure.
You right?
Yes, you're
well,
right.
I'll check with Theo Vaughn on that one because he understands hitters better than me. But if you can give your kid a strawberry or chocolate milk hitter, they're just going to be so stoked.
Yep.
And they're going to get stronger.
Yep.
Literally.
Healthier. Yeah. Literally.
I told Pete, I said on the Warrior Kid podcast that Warrior Kid milk will make you stronger. He's like, I don't know if you can legally make that claim. I'm like, well, it's already been said. So.
And it's straight up true.
How can that not be legally made? Because does protein rebuild your muscles?
Yes.
Answer, yes. Does Warrior Kid milk have protein in it? Yes. I guess we got to get the kids to jack steel too.
Or just grow up as a kid healthy. Yeah, you'll get stronger as a kid growing up. You don't have to jack any steel.
So we are technically and legally authorized to say to the children of the world, Warrior Kid milk will make you stronger. If I get the Nobel Prize for that, you get a Nobel Prize for helping children around the world?
Yes.
Okay, then I deserve it.
Yeah. All right, there you go. And not to go too deep into the whole thing about getting stronger. Like, if you make the claim that something's going to make you stronger, I think that is fine. Like legally, because legally you can't like diagnose. What's the other thing? There's a list of things you can't do. You can't diagnose. You can't
treat.
They're specific kind of. They're more medically based. I think, but I don't know.
Well, the only claim that we make, which is scientifically proven, is the deadlift capabilities if you drink Jocko white tea is 8,000 pounds.
8,000 pounds, yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously no one's gonna argue with that one.
No.
Because that's just facts.
Yep.
So if you want some Jocko white tea because you need a bigger deadlift, which you probably do, then you can get that from Amazon.
Well, the cans from Amazon.
The cans from Amazon.
The tea you can get the tea from
everywhere. Everywhere meaning?
Online. Just go online, man.
Okay.
Jocko white tea. It's on the store.
Okay. There you go. On what store?
Jocko store. Jocko is the store. It's called Jocko store. And the website is jockostore.com. It's online.
Did you say the website for Origin?
OriginMain.com? For the tea. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For all the Jocko joint warfare, Molk, the Geese, the Rashgar, the Origin stuff is all at OriginMain.com. I did say it, but, that's a little reminder.
Yeah.
But Jocko white tea is everywhere, including jockostore.com. Also on jockostore.com is where you can get your shirts when you're representing on the path. See, and that's a big part of being on the path. Actually, that's a good psychological and physical in my experience.
I don't even know what you're going to say, but I know what you're going to say.
What? It helps you stay on the path is what I'm saying.
You're not going to eat a donut while you're wearing a Dismal Equals Freedom t-shirt.
Exactly right.
It's physically impossible.
I think so, yes.
You'll be like the Exorcist. You just won't be able to stop yourself from throwing the donut box in the garbage can.
You know what's weird? And I'm being serious. It's like now.
Get behind me, Satan.
Now, like, I can't eat a donut. Even if I'm by myself, like, I can't. Like, it's embedded already because of the ethos of the path.
Yeah,
it prevents me physically from eating a donut.
The only donut I could eat is one that is an actual piece of steak cut into a circle with a piece missing from the middle.
Yeah,
I might do that.
Maybe
I might
here's my
make
donut.
A steak donut just to get some.
Well, here's the thing though. There's such thing as like little protein donuts.
Yeah, but if you look at the ingredients,
I don't know though.
Really
what if it was like a paleo You know how when people make paleo stuff, it's like kind of solid.
Okay, why
sometimes.
not just shape it like a stick?
I know. Really, I think you have a point
start
though.
Putting it into a donut scenario, it's just
because I think that's it. I think that's the thing. It's like the fact that it's a donut kind of that's what kind of creates the little thing in my brain. Anyway, back to the store, Jocko store. Hoodies on there, shirts on there, hats on there. A lot of cool stuff on there. If you want to represent in the wild, jockostore.com. Grab something.
Keep you on the deathcore
path. Also, okay, we talked about Jocko IT, obviously. Also, you want to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. That'll kind of keep you in tune, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Seems obvious, I guess, but it seems like a small thing. But hey, it's good. Subscribe, stay in tune, stay in touch on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. You know, anywhere where you listen to your podcast, go ahead and subscribe. Also, the Warrior Kid podcast.
Is the Warrior Kid podcast better than Jocko podcast?
I personally don't think so at the end of the day. What do you say? Net. Oh, you say net. You ever heard that expression? Net. My brother says that all the time. Anyway, net. I like the Jocko podcast better. Here's the thing, though. It's not like just cut and dry. You know why?
There's like legit competition.
Yeah. And here's the thing.
If you were to observe them from a completely unbiased, you probably don't like the Warrior Kid podcast because you're not in it.
I can't freaking rebuttal my stuff. Maybe. Here's the thing. Maybe. But
you like hearing yourself.
Here's the no. Here's the part that kind of what is like is like a rebuttal to my own opinion. Warrior Kid podcast, every single one of those was like 90, like I would say 85 to 100% impactful. Like every little thing, like I felt like applied to me. Mm-hmm. Where I can like whether it be in a big way or small. You're not talking about your daughter. Way, no.
You're talking about applied to you.
To me directly.
As a human man.
Here's the thing. Some things, yes, apply to my
36 years old or whatever you are.
Yes. But and I'm not saying it doesn't apply to my daughter. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it applies to me directly, whether it be me in my own life or me how I'm going to deal with my daughter now or my son or whatever. Like all of the things, pretty much. Like that's kind of the. So net, Jocko podcast, sure, I like better. Mm-hmm. Maybe because there's kind of more thing. I don't know why, but that's my answer. But I will say this. Maybe there. Maybe you might be right. But. Maybe because there's not as many Warrior Kid. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe I need more. I need more to shift over to for that to be better. I don't know.
Maybe.
Either way, that's on iTunes, Stitcher. Oh yeah, that's a podcast as well that you subscribe to. Also YouTube. There's a Warrior Kid YouTube.
Well, speaking of YouTube, there's the Jocko podcast channel on YouTube. There's Warrior Kid podcast on YouTube, which we separated so that your child won't be watching Warrior Kid podcast and then all of a sudden have the Rape of Dan King podcast creep into their zone, right? So we separated them, but they're both up there. They're both available. And also on the Jocko podcast, that's where Echo puts up videos with enhancements to them that make the message more impactful in his opinion.
Well, hopefully. We'll say hopefully. How about
that? Like I said, though, the Mikey and the Dragons video, which has moved to the top slot, in my opinion, for your videos, which is a bold statement.
Cool. Yeah.
It's a bold statement. People have got tears in their eyes from a 2-minute video about a kid's book. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say, I even had tears in my eyes. Here's the thing, I for real, and I'm not trying to be like all humble or whatever. I don't think it's necessarily because of me making the video, because I don't know. I'm only speaking for myself. So the king died. This is a story within a story. It's a story of a story in a story. So there's like 3 layers there. But so the idea of the king dying and then the kid being like young and having this big responsibility heaped on his shoulders and him being scared. For some reason, I don't know, I just get like all whatever about that, all emotions, I don't know, sensitive about that kind of stuff. So when it's like you explaining it and you say it like you're not being all tough, Jocko, see what I'm saying? Like you're doing it like appropriately, you see what I'm saying? And then so it's like that's really what kind of affected me. And I think, sure, I laid it out in a way where it's like kind of delivered in the appropriate way, but.
Is it Oh, I was going to ask if it was more impactful because you and I know the whole story. But people that don't know the whole story, that didn't have the book yet, were like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because when you know the whole story, it's like, oh, that's cool. But then people that didn't know the whole story were just like, oh.
You know what? Actually, no. Now the thing, because Jade said the same thing, and he didn't read the whole story,
there you go.
and he actually had little tears in his eyes. He's like, "Yeah, I have tears in my eyes. I don't know why." Like trying to act like it's just so confusing, you know. But meanwhile, he's all like being all emotional. yeah. I saw what went on.
So that's the YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that. That'd be cool. We'd appreciate it and all that stuff. Plus, you can leave the big thing about if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you need to comment about Echo, because the only compensation that Echo receives for participation in this podcast is being able to read YouTube comments that say Echo is so jacked.
Yeah, bro. Sure.
So go on YouTube, subscribe, and then write Echo is yoked, Echo is jacked, Echo is looking massive, all that kind of stuff. Because that way he'll be happy. I can just pay him with that. That's what he gets paid with.
Yeah, that's the worst idea I've ever heard.
It's not that bad.
Nonetheless.
But you do like it.
Nonetheless.
You pointed it out to me before.
I didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, I didn't.
You did.
When?
You were like, oh, there's always someone that says I look jacked.
I never said that.
You did.
Anyway, psychological warfare.
Okay.
If you don't know what that is what it is. It's an album with tracks. It's on iTunes and Amazon Music and stuff. It's an album with tracks. Jocko saying, helping you, us. He's helping us. That's what he's doing. Jocko is helping us through moments of weakness when they arise. And they'll arise. You can't sprint forever.
Good point.
And you might, instead of taking appropriate action when you realize you can't sprint forever, sometimes you might want to take a little bit more rest between sets. You don't have to.
But sometimes you might want to take too much rest.
You might want to. Yes, exactly right.
And you will not ever look jacked if you're taking too much rest between sets.
Yeah.
So get Psychological Warfare on iTunes, Google Play, MP3.
Yes. And you'll get past those moments of weakness, because Jocko will just help you through it just by telling you. That's the thing. It's like a little spot, you know, when you're slacking.
A little spot in reference to weightlifting.
Yeah, if that's the analogy.
Right, because someone's trying to lift and they can't quite get it, and so they help you lift it a little bit.
Yeah.
They give you a little spot.
But
so you're referencing weightlifting.
Yes, but in this case...
And is that how you get jacked?
In this case, instead of weights, it's your slacker weakness. That might come. I'm not saying we're all weak, but sometimes a lot of us are sometimes. Anyway, Jocko's there for you. Boom, Psychological Warfare. Also, if your workout's boring... Even if it's not boring, get more fitness gear. So I incorporated, get it from Onnit, right? Onnit.com/Jocko. Fitness gear, battle ropes, rings, kettlebells, of course. To me, if you don't have the kettlebells, I feel like there's like one little element, big, small, I don't know, depends on who you are, but there's one little element of life that's missing. Yeah. That's my opinion. But when I got the rings, that changed my whole workout. So you do a bunch of cool stuff on rings. I only do a handful of things. Actually, not even a handful, like 2-3 things. One of the main ones are like, when I make them go super low, like maybe waist, maybe
handstand push-ups in them.
No, bro. I'm still a beginner at the rings, but so I'll hold them in front of me and then I'll do. It's kind of like an ab roller kind of thing.
Do you use one arm at a time or both arms?
Both arms. And then sometimes I'll go like wide and narrow, whatever. So I'll do those. I'll do like sets of 10, and you can adjust like how high, how hard and easier it is, whatever.
1 millimeter off the ground.
You gotta go full extension. You can get there. I'm gonna get there. Nonetheless, between every exercise, between every set, you do a set of 10. That's like the workout, because it's not super exhausting to do it, so it's like an active rest. It's good, man. I think it'll take your like workout to the next level. Here's the thing. People say that, take it to the next level. That doesn't even mean anything.
Well, let me ask you this. Even if it doesn't take it, if it takes to this, will it help you get jacked?
Anyway, let me briefly explain what that means, to the next level. So like when you do, I don't know, deadlifts, or I don't know, shoulder press or something. Like when you're, God, as you guys say. Curls, big time. Curls and tricep extension. When you do these things, you're like, since your like core or whatever is stronger, and this is just what I'm like, what you feel when your core is strong, it feels like you have way better balance. You have like way better control of the weight, so you get stronger overall. Boom. Just from rings. Anyway, onit.com. That's where you get all this cool stuff.
If you want to get your mind smarter and tougher and get your brain more jacked. If you want to get your brain more jacked, we got some books. Mikey and the Dragons, that is out. There are more being printed at this time. I'm printing as many as humanly possible. Order it immediately so that I know and I can get it to you. It's coming. So we've shipped out some. We got some more coming in right now. So yeah, if you haven't ordered it yet, then order it now. The feedback is awesome right now, and thank you for posting the reviews on Amazon. That's so cool to read and see little pictures of kids reading the book, and I'm just super stoked on that book. So thank you for that. And Way the Warrior Kid, for the kids that are maybe just a little bit older, that's a book about getting on the path for kids, and it's going to help them in every possible element of their life that I can think of right now. It will help them.
I think so too.
It'll make them smarter. It'll make them work harder. It'll make them understand discipline. It'll make them stronger. It'll just help them across the board. That's Way the Warrior Kid, and then the follow-on book to that is Way the Warrior Kid, Mark's Mission. The next is The Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual, which is a book about how to get after it.
Yeah. The book.
It's the book about how to get after it. It is not a throwaway book by any stretch.
No.
It is, how would you describe it?
A manual.
It's a manual, but I mean...
it's an instrument.
No, what's the word you used earlier? Aesthetically. Aesthetically. Could you possibly look on the external part, just the cover of the field manual, and think maybe I'll do a little extra work today?
Yes.
That is entirely 100%. Possible, right?
Yeah, fully. And
because you know what's in it.
Yeah. Get after it material.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this too, not extensive thought, but there's an audio version of this.
True. True.
Which is cool, which is good. But it's kind of like one of those things where you kind of like, man, I kind of want the physical book, even if I'm more of an audio book person. You know, I want that physical book because of its aesthetics.
Heavy. It's heavy. It has black pages. Let's just put it to you that. Let's just start with that. Have you ever seen a book with black pages? No, you haven't.
No.
Get the field manual right there. If you do want the audio version, then it's on iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Play. It's not on Audible because I wanted you to be able to use it as a alarm.
Sure.
Some of those things, little warnings.
Yeah.
Little tracks ready to be played at a moment's notice.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, where
like if you set up a timer where when you were going to lunch, Sugar-Coated Lies play, it would keep you in check. For real.
Man, perfect example. And because the thing is, like, some of these like chapters or whatever, you're going to identify with more than, let's say, the next chapter, you know, especially like if you like donuts or pastries of sorts, you know, the Sugar-Coated Lies one, you're going to be referencing down a little bit more, right? So it's like, okay, you know, so you have that option now. That's good. I'll put it on the timer. That's good.
Check.
I might use that one.
Yeah. The next book is, well, I'll talk about two books together, Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership. These are two books about the lessons learned on the battlefield. Myself and Leif Babin wrote the books. He was in Task Unit Bruiser as the Charlie Platoon Commander. And we took the lessons that we learned over there. We brought them back. We started teaching them to the SEALs that were getting ready to deploy. And we wrote Extreme Ownership when we got out and started working with companies and saw that all the lessons that we learned transferred to the civilian sector. And then we wrote The Dichotomy of Leadership as a follow-on book, which some people are saying is better. I don't know which one is better, but I do know that they will make you better. They will make you a better leader. So check those out. Extreme Ownership, Dichotomy of Leadership, Mikey and the Dragons, Way of the Warrior Kid, Mark's Mission, and Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. You can get your brain jacked, which is the word of the day. Echo, Echelon Front, that's a leadership consultancy. We solve problems through leadership. So if you have a team, if you have a company, if you have a business, and you want to get your leadership aligned and you want to get them functioning at the highest level, you can go to echelonfront.com. We solve problems through leadership. That's what we do. We got the muster coming in 2019, Chicago and Denver, and we're also doing Sydney. So check out extremeownership.com for details on that. All of the past musters have sold out. These musters will sell out as well. So try and get it in on it early so that you can come. We actually turned people away. We turned a pretty good number of people away from Muster 007 in San Francisco, and that doesn't feel good. You feel kind of bad. So try and register early for that. And then, of course, EF Overwatch. This is where we are taking people from our old community, in the Spec Ops, Special Operations community, and the Combat Aviation community, folks that were leaders and tested as leaders on the battlefield. And now we are taking those tried and tested leaders and placing them into civilian organizations to help the leadership in those companies and teams. You can go to efoverwatch.com if you're either a vet that is looking for your next mission, or you are a company looking for your next high-level leader. And if you have more questions or you have answers for us, we are available on the interwebs, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Echo is at Echo Charles, and I am at Jocko Willink. And thanks to all the military folks out there that are protecting us from evil around the globe. And thanks to police, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, correctional officers, border patrol, and all first responders. Thanks for holding the line 24 hours a day here on the home front. And to everyone else out there, thank you for your questions. But as I said earlier, most of these questions you already know the answers to. You already know the right thing to do. You already know what you're supposed to do. You already know how to get on the warpath and stay on the warpath. It's by getting out there every single day and getting after it. And until next time, this is Echo and Jocko. Out.